Good to go. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the DeBrief show. As usual, we're just going to take a few minutes and let people come on, and also while we share the link. Okay, guys, you got your link?
Right.
So just bear with us right now as we share the link out to the various persons that are waiting, and then we will begin. And tonight we promise not to have so much phone conversation going on. We've had a complaint there, and we want to take that very seriously. That tonight, guys, people are saying they don't want our heads down the phone. They want us engaged. So give us 2 seconds while we share the link, and then get off our phones, and everyone take that time out to share the link, and then we go from there. Yeah? We encourage you as well to please share the link with your people so that we can have a really good conversation tonight, and be able to reach those that want to listen to us. But we ask you to share the link as well, like the page, so that you know when we are on as well. And tonight we're gonna have a very interesting conversation, and we want all engagement at every level. All right. Edit this here. Right. So. Still live. All right. I just put it up. Just wait on it. You know it. Right. Everybody good? All right. So I just have to change the topic today. We're discussing LGBT in Barbados. So today we have Rohan Mohammed from She Barbados. So just let me change this in.
I'm Pride Barbados. I'm one of the directors of Pride.
I'm one of the directors of Pride as well.
Mm-hmm.
So just let me change so I can just persons could see the topic. Alright, so LGBT. So just bear with us while we put up the topic. LGBTQ, right?
Plus.
Yeah, LGBTQ plus is pretty comprehensive.
And Barbados.
Plus down to A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
No.
Right? So
Etc.
our numbers are going fast. So guys, welcome to the show. Kimar Safri here, your host, with my co-host Damani Small here, Kimar Stewart, and also Jermaine Beckford. Today we have Miss Rohan Mohammed from She Barbados and Pride
Barbados.
Pride Barbados. And we will be discussing the whole thing as it relates to the LGBTQ plus community. We've seen what is going on, and we had a different agenda for today. We thought to really bring this show today because of what we've been seeing in the media, what we've been hearing in the media, and we asked everybody to join, share the link, join the discussion as we discuss the LGBTQ plus community in Barbados, and to see how we can get a sense of understanding of the LGBTQ plus community. Because one of the things that we've been seeing is that the media brings these things out, it really never brings out the full picture. And we really would like to hear from the community. Donna Pigott was supposed to be here. Unfortunately, she can't be with us today. But we would really like to hear what the community has to say. And we've seen several articles, and also we've also seen lately the rating that Barbados have been put into, the bracket rather, which Barbados have been put into, which is not really standing well with a lot of people. And we want to hear Rohan's input as it relates to it. We encourage a person to share questions. We encourage people to come on and select the page, share the link, and let's have a rather fruitful discussion. So as we start tonight, Rohan, I would like to ask you to explain to the viewers what is She Barbados, and also Pride
Barbados.
Barbados.
So it's Roanne actually, no
Ro-
H. It's like
Roanne.
Joanne but with an R.
Barbados, don't say words.
Well, I'm just correcting you.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You're engaging with it.
Yeah, so She Barbados is an organization that I started with a colleague, I think maybe 2 years ago. And this was coming out of the recognition, just as I was telling before we started, that since I think in the 80s when we had the big boom of the HIV/AIDS epidemic, the LGBTQ movement has been really, really focused on gay men and men who have sex with men, and that has meant that a lot of women, queer women, and our issues have sort of fallen to the wayside. So I think it's really important to have a specific organization or space where queer and trans women or other trans people can, focus on the issues that come with being queer or trans and not a man, not a cis man at that. And Pride Barbados last year is when we were founded in 2018, and this was a culmination of all the different civil society organizations, and most of the civil society organizations and event coordinators in Barbados focused on LGBT issues across the board, a whole bunch of different LGBT issues, because we have quite a lot of organizations here in Barbados working on LGBT issues across the board. So we all came together and we decided to commemorate Pride Month, because Pride Month is celebrated globally in June. So last year is when we came together and we coordinated to celebrate and acknowledge Pride Month. We have a month long of events that happens. So that happened last year in June and this year as well. And it ended with the parade, which was the big hurrah, the huge finale. Yeah.
Okay, so we have an understanding. Disconnect.
Disconnected?
No, still here. Sorry. Thank you for the update on the what She Barbados and Pride Barbados is. Let's delve in to the meat of the matter. And what we're really here. We've been seeing that of lately that there is a number of things that the LGBTQ community through different activists, advocates rather, because we realize that it is not just you. We've seen Donya Pigott, we've seen yourself as front person, and we've also seen Alexa Hoffman, and then there's another one, Raven.
Yeah.
Raven. So we've seen the four of you guys more so popping up now as this front persons. I think everybody seems to have, I think Raven is butterfly or something. So yeah. So everybody seems to be on have a different agenda as it relates to the LGBTQ. You're saying yours focus more on queer women,
trans people.
Raven more lately is on
transgender issue,
and then we have Donya. She's advocating.
She's focused on pink coconuts and economic empowerment and
a safe issues. Place as it relates to LGBT when it comes to Barbados or what's not.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So with that, then we've also seen that Barbados have now fallen into being one of the most quote unquote dangerous places for LGBT community in the world. Out of 150 countries, we're ranked 8. Surprising, Jamaica is at 18 and we're at 8.
Yeah.
Can you shed some light as it relates to that, and also what are the thoughts within the LGBT community if it's shocking that Barbados is saying? And I know one of the main reasons why we were, and this will be a second question later down, but one of the main reasons that Barbados was ranked as being dangerous is because of the fact that we still have a Burglary Law. And I thought
the harshest Burglary Law in the Western, the harshest penalty in the Western.
So share with some light as it relates to what are your thoughts as being ranked dangerous, and also as it relates to the law.
Yeah. Okay. So this is part of a whole large issue for me. I have a problem with the ranking and publication.
Does other members in the community share that as well?
So I'm gonna speak on behalf of myself,
Okay.
because I know other people who might be more vulnerable than myself would agree with it. Because I saw that some people were definitely in agreement with the list and the ranking.
So you disagree that it's too high or too low?
Well, I have a problem with the
The ranking.
not just the ranking, but I have a problem with the list. So Out Magazine, they published a study that was done by somebody else in the Global North, and I have a problem fundamentally with Global North institutions or publications and organizations creating these lists to decide who in the developing world is the most dangerous and the most homophobic. Because first of all, it says that they set the standard by which we need to achieve, and they set the standard by which our progress needs to be measured. So I have a problem with that. We don't have to aspire to anything on their ranking, because I mean Barbados is listed as number 8, but where have like 20-something trans women for the year been killed? Not in Barbados, in the States. So I have a problem with that fundamentally. That's not to negate the fact that LGBTQ plus people in Barbados and across the Caribbean do face very real oppression on a systemic level when it comes to accessing things like housing and healthcare, even education, employment, all of these different things. These are real things that LGBTQ people face. But to just...
Can I pause a minute? Regular people in Barbados face these very same issues.
But not because they're straight. Not because they're straight. But let me finish this point though. Okay. So with regards to this, with regards to this listing, another problem that I have with it is the fact that they just publish this thing and it's just like, okay, these are the most quote unquote homophobic places in the world. And what it does, they did it according to legislation, right? And we have the Burglary Law, not just the Burglary Law, but the Serious Indecency Act as well, which also criminalizes any use of the genitals for non-procreative purposes. So these laws also apply to heterosexual people across the board, regardless of sexual orientation. But these laws were instilled in 1868 by the British colonial government due to like moral panic. And then the British government went on to repeal those laws in their own country in 1967. So what we are living with is a remnant of colonization, and they don't acknowledge any of that in their publications, right? So they put out this list without like giving any of the backstory, without giving any context, without acknowledging the real work that has been going on in the region or in the countries for so long. Because we've had a thriving LGBT movement for a long time, and a history of activism and a history of queer people existing in these spaces, queer and trans people dating back to pre-colonization. So I find the list lacking context, and I just have a fundamental problem in general with the list like this being published and looking at queer issues in the global south through this white global north lens. I have a problem with that.
But one of the things is when you hear that word dangerous, it goes past in my head thinking that the LGBT community is beat on, spit on, killed in the country, because they didn't raise it that saying, well, Barbados is number 8 because but you're saying to us it seems that the country is unsafe for the LGBT community, and well, we understand that there's great oppression in the sense of people pressuring, people calling names and stuff like that. We're not seen as we're not seen as a violent country towards the LGBT community. Yeah. So, and I find that when people like the Great North, or what you call them, publish these things, it really gives Barbados a really bad look. And I think that also this is where the LGBT community needs to also quote unquote own up to the fact that or put it out there that our country is not like that. Our country, we are not where we have not yet abolished the law as it relates to burglary, we are same-sex marriage. It is not a country that I see that is making I almost say homeless, is making the LGBT community feel unsafe.
Oh no, the LGBT community does feel unsafe on many levels.
On many levels, but I'm just using the word dangerous.
Yeah, the list is lacking context and the whole publication itself, I think it's problematic, but...
You could describe some of the levels in the LGBTQI community feels unsafe in Barbados.
I mean, a lot of people, I think, so it depends on privilege level as well, right? If you're looking at people who are visibly gender non-conforming, a lot of the time transgender people, particularly youth, people who are black poor, living in urban and marginalized communities.
This is a black country.
Yeah, but there's still white queer people who live there, you know, they wouldn't face the same kind of oppression that the most marginalized people face. So for example, somebody who is trans and living in town and very poor and black will face a lot more scrutiny based on their sexual orientation or gender identity than a white person who lives in a safe neighborhood, you know? But yeah, so there is violence that happens to a lot of people, particularly people who are most vulnerable. And we see it a lot because I'm a community organizer and I've been doing this work for almost 10 years now. So we see it all the time. And I think the thing is that it's very unreported. So it doesn't seem as if there's widespread violence. And there's not a high level of physical violence, but I think any physical violence against somebody because of their sexual orientation or their gender identity is wrong.
Alright,
you know?
no, I have an issue with what you're saying because when you look at Barbados, you look at our legal system. You spoke previously about.
Raise your voice.
Sorry, you spoke previously about access to housing, social services, right? You're speaking about violence against LGBTQI persons because of their sexual orientation and what they want to do or not want to do, right? But these are issues that, from what I see, and I'm not sure if Kimar or Damani would agree with me, these are issues that affect average everyday Barbadians to the point that, I mean, alright, so you have in Barbados, I can't remember the thousands, I can't remember the exact figure of the thousands of crimes that occur in Barbados, right? So,
Per 100,000.
no, there's actually a figure, yeah, I think it was.
You said thousands of
I
crimes.
think it was about 13,000 crimes or something, so that is reported per year, right? So this is inclusive of murders, robberies, petty theft, violence, and any crime that's reported to police, they compile their statistics. Now, can you bring definitive proof to show that, hey, there are 270,000 people in Barbados? I don't know how many people identify with the LGBTQI community. So if you can bring statistics to show these are the amount of people who identify with our community, these are the persons in Barbados, this is the general crime rate in Barbados, these are crimes that are reported, and these are the crimes that actually occur against our people, to show that, you know what, based on the statistics and factual evidence, that there's a higher propensity of violence against our community than other people who do not identify with the LGBTQI community in Barbados. Because if you can bring those statistics, then I would be willing to absolutely take you on.
The thing is, right, everybody's saying that LGBT people face more violence than the general population. But LGBT people face violence specifically, not even just violence, but discrimination and stigmatization, specifically on their sexual orientation and gender identity. So nobody is going out and being beaten up because they're straight. Nobody's being denied jobs because they're straight. Nobody's being denied social services because they're straight.
But no, we could correct that, because I know people are denied jobs based on where they live, based on address.
Right, and that's not okay either.
And that, based on where they were at school.
Well, that's not okay. That's
My question is though, why do you think that they're discriminated?
Because it's a stigmatized issue, and we still have a very colonized society.
Is it a stigmatized issue, or is it because we live in a more, I would say, Christian civilization? Therefore, with the Christian line of thinking, is wrong.
Okay, but that doesn't mean that it's okay for people to be denied social services or housing.
But social services
are people denied?
Healthcare, that's a big one.
So you're saying that if you go to the hospital, the community
public hospitals,
or you go to the polyclinics, or you even go to the Ministry of Health, or any government institution in Barbados, and you present yourself and say, hey, I am a man who identifies as a woman, or hey, I'm
what do you mean a man who identifies as a woman?
No, transgender.
That's not a man who identifies as a woman. That's a transgender person.
Okay, well, I am a transgender individual, right?
But
or hold on, or I am a homosexual male or female, right? You're telling me that based on that description of yourself, or even the way how you may present yourself in terms of how you look, that you're going to be denied services
that happens
in Barbados?
all the time. I don't know why.
Listen to an example.
I have several. Okay, so
I work in medical. I worked before in the medical field.
Yeah.
I've never seen it. But before you even go there, you just mentioned a point that I want to hit on.
Okay.
He just mentioned about a man that identifies as a woman
Yeah.
and you said it's not a man, it is a transgender.
Transgender person.
What does the person has as a sexual organ?
I don't know about people's sexual organs.
Okay, the man is the man that basically says that he is a woman. If he's a
somebody
man,
says they're a woman,
and you're saying he's
then
transgender,
If-
therefore he has a penis and 2 testicles. He's a man, transgender. Listen, is male
No.
or female?
Okay. no.
In between in there,
So what are intersex people then?
what's the innocent? Tell me what it is.
Intersex person. So people think that okay. So first of all, I'm really not gonna like sit down and listen to you be transphobic. Like that's not gonna fly with me. No. That's
Transphobic?
Hold on.
no. To sit down and say
You're either male
Hold
or
on.
female.
But that's your.
No,
Hold on.
no.
That's
No.
your opinion.
no, but
Explain yourself.
factually, there's not only just male or female. So people think that sex, in terms of biology and your sex organs, so when you're born, you either have one set of genitals or another set of genitals. But it's actually a spectrum. So I think maybe 2% of people born, statistically, globally, are intersex, and those are people who are born with a variation of sex organs. So there are people who are born with vagina and testes, or internal
You said testes. You saw me was afraid to call that word. You said, what do you call it, testes?
testes, I mean internal, like gonads.
okay.
But then there are people who are born with a uterus and also a penis. There are people who are born with all types of variations.
That's a seminary. I think she's like that, right?
I think she might be
How do
intersex,
they
I'm not
identify
sure.
which sex they are?
They're intersex, but that's to tell you that gender and sex are two different things, because somebody could be intersex and either gender.
Okay, I understand that point.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
So-
they're a minority, but they exist. So that's to tell you it's not like a black and white topic, you know? Sex
Okay.
is a variation.
So, alright, so we're discussing the whole
But then
issue.
you know bring a third variation into it, because if you got based on what you said, it's neither penis and testicles
Or both.
vagina. I can understand it yourself, because I don't even know how to understand that, but
What,
it is what it is.
one of my biggest argument would be that the fact that many times when you hear persons within the community, the LGBT community speak, it is not factual.
What do you mean?
Meaning that they don't present evidence then to support. It is always, to me, it seems based on, not all, but some based on emotion, some were based on what I feel it's saying today, what is going on in society tomorrow. So I find that, agree with what the man was saying earlier, is that some sort of evidence, statistics. Cause for me, I'm an advocate, so I understand your position coming from an advocate as well. That if somebody beat on my homeless, when I start to record that, I can go, cause people send me pictures. I have a lady that sent me videos and pictures of a homeless guy that burned, I think it's being circulated now, that burned his face. And
Yeah.
that is something I would speak
Yeah,
to with the alcohol.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that is something I would speak to the media as well. So, but my thing is, I could go and say for the year, 20 persons was abused on. While I may not know every single homeless person that was beaten on or whatever, the statistics still prove. And while I don't care who you are, queer or LGBT, nobody should be beat up on or abused for any particular
I agree.
reason at any level, because I won't want to be as beat up because somebody tell me I look ugly. So just as much I won't want somebody beat up because they're queer or gay or whatever the case may be. So we gotta protect our people from the lowest up. So at the end of the day, one of the things that I would like to see is the statistics that surrounds the beating on or the abuse on or job denial
Yeah.
or healthcare denial, because I don't care who you is. Nobody should be denied healthcare.
Healthcare.
Sir, and your healthcare should not be based on whether you're gay or not. I remember the homeless was, and I went into the hospital one and saw the homeless be denied services.
Yeah.
And I addressed that.
Okay.
I addressed that, and I don't care who was there. I addressed it, and I took it as far as the CEO at the time, and he addressed it, and we addressed it with MOUs that none of my clients are supposed to be treated in any way. So these are things that would help. That statistics are out there proving to what is going on there, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think research is really important and data is really important. And I think the issue that we have had in collecting data, like you mentioned, a lot of the time when people bring up things, the evidence is anecdotal, which I also think is valid, right? I think anecdotal evidence is valid. In the Caribbean, I think storytelling is a big part of our culture, and anecdotal evidence should be valid. But I do think empirical data and evidence and statistics are important. But I do think what has been an issue is collecting evidence from people, because it is such a stigmatized issue. So when people want to report and they want to come forward, they have to identify themselves. as a part of this community in the first place, and then that's re-traumatizing a lot of times. Sometimes if you go to the police don't want to take your report because if you present a certain way. But there has been research done. So cadres in, I think 2014, they published a study about attitudes towards the community and other issues. I think it's 2014, you could look this up. This was at my Peter Wickham's organization. And I think they ascertained that maybe 10 to 14% of the population in Barbados identifies as non-cis heterosexual, non-cisgender or heterosexual.
What's that?
Non-cisgender?
Yeah, so either...
Explain that more.
So cisgender, so the transgender and cisgender. When you're transgender, you don't identify with the gender you were assigned at birth,
Okay.
and when you're cisgender, you identify with the gender that you were assigned at birth. So I'm cisgender.
So you identify as a girl?
Yes, because
Oh.
I was assigned a girl at birth, and I identify as a woman.
Before you go any farther, you keep on using this word assigned,
Uh-huh.
right? Not to back the money,
Uh-huh.
but the reality is, when you're a woman,
Mhm.
right? You can have a child.
Yeah.
Your child comes out of your womb. The doctor looks at your well, even inside of the womb, my doctor does an ultrasound. The doctor will say, "Well, hey, you're getting a baby boy, or you're getting a baby girl." Right? Now, I get very weary when I hear people keep on using this word assigned agenda.
Mhm.
No one assigns agenda to you. You are either born, well, you said they're intersex people.
Mhm.
So you're either born a male, a female, or an intersex.
Mhm.
Right? The reality of the situation, I will say this openly. Being transgender, it is a choice. No, yes, I
Oh
will
my
say
God.
it is a choice.
Oh my God. Transgender is a choice.
It is a choice. Being gay is also a choice.
So wait,
That's his view.
I literally can't.
It's a choice.
When did you choose to be straight?
No.
When did you choose to?
No,
be cisgender?
you look.
So you're saying that you choose to be gay or you choose to be straight,
Yes.
and you're thinking that you born gay or you born straight.
Before I get into that, I want to finish talking about the research.
Mm.
So in addition to the cadre study, there's also Movement Against Discrimination Action Coalition is the name of the organization, and they have done recording of human rights violations or stigma and discrimination against LGBT people across Barbados. So I guess you could reach out to them if you want more statistics. I also work with an organization called Equals Barbados, and they do a really great job at providing services. And right now we have a shared incident database.
What type of services?
Specifically, healthcare. We do free testing, free access to medical services. We're partnered with the Barbados Family Planning Association, where we have a clinic that we offer gynecological services, prostate testing. We do free counseling. We also have free access to PrEP. PrEP is a pill that you take once a day, and it prevents you from transmitting HIV.
All right.
Okay.
So just access to medical services in a safe and confidential space. But
Before you get started with the money,
I got a
let's
question.
change a bit. So
Hold on, I got a question.
a lot of things to pin here.
Yeah. There's a question that I can ask. It asks here that they want the panel to address if we as a country is mature enough outside of hiding behind our Christian excuse to accept members of the community, of the gender community, of the LGBT community.
What's the question?
What's the question again? Wait, what's the question? Is
If we think it's not there, if we think as a country
Oh.
we have matured enough outside of hiding behind Christian excuse to accept members of the LGBT community.
Yes, I mean, okay. So I think there's a shift in mindset. I mean, just the fact that we're able to have a pride parade for 2 years in a row that was incident free and supported by a lot of allies. Most of the people.
So we are not dangerous.
Most of the people who were at the parades, actually, both this year and last year, weren't even LGBT. They were straight cisgender people. People brought their families. You know, it was
Okay.
a good space.
Can't do that in Jamaica. Can't
Jamaica just had a pride thing too.
And incident free.
It was.
So let me
I
ask
think
you-
they protested, but
Let me ask you a question though, since we're on that
yeah.
one. You know my question will be, well, Barbados have been very
Hold on,
So when am I going back to y'all?
Hold on.
I-
Your
someone,
choice
someone
thing.
just said here that he might get muffled so they didn't hear properly.
So you can still, can you hear us? If you can hear us, just somebody say yes so they can change.
Oh, you said it better now.
Better know, okay. So what let me ask this question.
Where's the mic?
Mic is in the camera.
Oh.
Well, let me ask this question, and I have to bring it. Barbados, the Pride
Yes.
of Barbados, sorry,
Uh-huh.
You keep on mixing.
have is near independence. Pride Barbados have successfully
Mm-hmm.
had 2 years incident free
Mm-hmm.
Pride marches
Mm-hmm.
where I saw trucks, the whole
Yeah.
bad flicky work and thing. It was all good and fine and dandy and incident free.
Yes.
But it was also not protested in by Christians placarding through your pride marches.
But they did that, yeah.
But the other night,
Mm-hmm.
you guys
Proudly so.
no paraded through
Uh-huh.
paraded through a Christian event.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I get so bad saying this here. I know how LGBT community is, and to this extent, that if it was the Christians that had paraded through Pride March, it would have made national headlines to the point that you hear now, Barbados more than they just probably would have raised a number one, or it would have had some sort of outcry.
Uh-huh.
And I think personally that there have to be a level of respect where if you want it,
Mm-hmm.
or the LGBT community rather want respect, they have to
Yeah.
ditch out the respect. I did not respect seeing or hearing the LGBT community going to no Christian event and placarding or walking through an event boldly, proudly, or whatever, because if that was done to the LGBT community, it would have been raucous on every level. I want to know when I would have make sure when I milk that day from 2
Milk it.
up.
Okay.
And I use that word strongly, milk it, because you know y'all would have put it on every social media, it would have gone international, whatever. So I'm saying, what or why the LGBT community would have gone to a Christian event and walked through the event and disturb the peace of our event.
Okay, so I'm just gonna explain. First of all, we didn't walk through. We didn't do. It was a peaceful demonstration. It was a public event. We went and we stood with our placards that had messaging. We didn't cause any noise, nothing like that. But I will tell you why I think this is a false equivalency. So Pride, is a space for the LGBT community who has been marginalized, ostracized, silenced, pretty much told that we don't deserve to exist or be visible in this community or in this society. Pride is about claiming space and being like, no, we belong here. We are Caribbean citizens, we are Barbadian people, we contribute as much to the society as anybody else does. That's what Pride is about. It's about visibility. It's not against anything. But also, right before the Pride Parade last year, the same group, the Barbados Rally or Family Faith Freedom, they had a big press conference the day before our Pride Parade last year, and they pretty much sort of called for the government not to have it. And what that did, I got a flood of death threats, hate mail, violent, threatening messages in my personal inbox. People were threatening to rape me, people were threatening to kill me, people were talking that they're going to come up to the parade and shoot into the crowd. So I 100% wholly thought that last
Stop
year.
there. So that happened, and you think that it was smart to go and protest the same
No,
group?
let me tell you.
That makes sense.
So these people who
Makes sense. Then you get any same with these
No,
death
no,
threats,
no.
whatever.
let me continue.
But that may be continuous
continue.
regardless.
Let me continue.
I want your
Let me
continue.
continue. So these people had that press conference before our parade last year. They were the ones who incited violence. They didn't come to our inboxes and send violent messages
Obviously.
or anything like that.
Probably.
But I feel like it sort of creates leeway for that to happen. Anyway, so the church is an institution with a lot of power. This specific group, they're not just a Christian. They're not just people being Christian and practicing their faith. This group is specifically designated to be anti-LGBT. This is a specific anti-LGBT group.
And what
These
made
people-
you what made you even think that? Because
That's all they talk. This is the only thing they're committed to.
But but what is wrong with that?
It's a problem
but no, it's
For who you?
for the LGBT community because
But
the
before-
messaging that
But
they
before we go there,
they
no.
have their right.
no, just
to-
like you.
Exactly.
Okay, all right, but
So they're not wrong.
So freedom religious freedom doesn't mean that you come with freedom of accountability or freedom of consequences, right? The messaging that they perpetuate is that LGBT people don't experience violence, LGBT people don't experience discrimination, but they're very anti-LGBT in their rhetoric. And we see a direct correlation with the messaging that they put out
Would you not
and
say that
the violence that comes to the
would
community.
you not say that
after.
the LGBTQI community, not only in Barbados but worldwide, is very anti-Christian as well?
No, because they're Christian LGBT people.
It can't be both.
I know Christian LGBT people.
It can't
Wow,
be.
let me ask you, Mark, let me ask you. I don't think you can be Christian on these.
Can you be a Christian fornicator? Yes, you can. I know lots of Christians.
Yeah,
That's different.
You're the Christian, you're a fornicator.
There's
You
actually
can't be a Christian fornicator, you're a fornicator, you're a Christian. Hold on.
Let me get to
hear you, Maury.
We're not gonna. That's a rather salacious argument to me.
What is
Trying
that?
to correlate what the movement doing and violence coming towards the community. That's extremely salacious.
No.
You cannot make that absurd exaggeration.
But there is a direct correlation.
That is absurd. Is the exaggeration. You cannot.
No, it's not.
You cannot
No, it's not.
attempt to correlate the movement of an organization towards any violence.
Before evidence.
Before
No,
evidence.
okay, so-
And you just said, you just agreed everybody has rights. If it is their right to protest against what you were saying, that is their right. It is your right also to protest for your rights, as you have done. But as Kima rightfully said, it is not right. I didn't respect it. It was extremely disrespectful, because if persons had to come into your march, as he said, it would have been a big problem. Right? Being Christian is not anti-LGBT.
It's being Christian.
I agree.
It's being Christian.
I agree.
Right? I don't think people care as much. If you gay, don't think nobody care. If you gay, as you think. But the community makes being gay some type of God-given special. I guess so. Pay me attention, or I guess so. I deserve this. You made some assertions that you've been refused word or what's not. If you check Barbadian society and a lot of the organizations, your gays are
The highest level.
highest levels
And the lowest
and
levels.
the lowest levels, right? There are gays with significant amounts of wealth in Barbados.
Yep.
Gays work in the hospital. Gays are nurses. So I personally don't think
Doctors.
I personally don't think that the movement that LGBT community in Barbados that is pursuing right now is genuine as it relates to these issues, right? I think the narrative that is being pushed is more selfish and egotistical, to the point that Barbados is, although they may have a minority of persons who may be against the community in principle, be it religious reasons, personal reasons, or whatever, I think y'all use that to perpetuate a narrative that is not factual, right? As I said, I don't think people care with the fact that
Well, you do, you better.
you take. In Barbados, you also spoke about the Burglary laws. When last we had anybody being prosecuted or anything for
Have we ever had?
Burglary
Yeah,
laws?
it does happen.
It actually happened.
People have been.
In my lifetime, I read one case about it.
And that was a public?
Yes,
This-
it was in the
no, no.
system.
Was that public? No, hold on. Was that public?
Laws.
No, was that public done publicly, or that was done in somebody
Privately.
privately?
No, it was in a public. It was in Kensington Overlook.
Well,
No, the Burglary Law is used.
No, yeah, but no. Understand what I'm saying here, so we can get the narrative here. The person that was charged, was they charged for going into their bedroom and doing things, or they were charged for public display of affection? So if the Burglary Law, which is the law that states that anal sex at any level, both be men or female, both be two men or men and a female, is illegal, and I think you can have up to 10 years in jail for it.
It's life imprisonment is the harshest in the
For
Western
Barbados,
Hemisphere.
right? But I think
Yeah.
Jamaica and those have 10 years, and
Yeah.
Jamaica those only.
Life imprisonment in
Yeah,
jail.
huh?
But they can be.
J-
And there is some
Sorry.
more.
So what I'm saying is, at the end of the day, if you're doing things in public, you do things in public and you get catch. If I go there to public affection, display of affection, and it will be charged.
It's not only used for people who are in public. What it is used for now, within the most recent years, it's been used to charge an adult when they have a relationship with an underage boy. So it should be charged as statutory rape, but it is not. They charge people under the Burglary Law. But we have comprehensive sexual assault laws and that's what it should be used for. So the Burglary Law is only used for cases of statutory rape between a man and a younger boy.
Okay.
And that is problematic because then it implies that homosexuality and pedophilia are synonymous, which they are not. So I think it just needs to be done away with.
I want to ask a question. I want to ask a question.
But you think, but no, without that, right? I find that, well, what you just said, right? You could understand that burglary should not be in the same line as a pedophile, right? That's
Yeah,
what
because
we're
I
saying.
mean we already
Because
have
a
laws that
pedophile-
protect that. Yeah.
Right. But whenever it is pushed, it is seen as if two men just want to have the opportunity to have sex. The way how it pushed and someone in the media.
Maybe they do.
Yeah, but I mean, I sure know with or without the Burglary Law, sex will happen in the bedroom, whether the man having sex anal sex with a female, or two men in the bed or two women in the bed.
Yeah.
That will be done regardless if the law pass or the law doesn't pass. What I try to understand is why it is so imperative for this law, because we've seen Alexa taking the government to court, and for this, and I know where she got it from because other people around the Caribbean taking the government to court, and we've been put on, and this is we as a country have been given deadlines to which we must comply to, if not, as it relates to the Burglary Law.
But why should we have
You
to
understand?
comply?
So, but again, I find that when these things happen, while you are saying that it is because of this reason or that reason, to me and to the general public, probably I don't know, but I can speak for myself, it seems like it's just one step further to say, if we get Burglary Law off the book, we can start pushing same-sex marriage next. And it seems like a gender item than it is, because it is stigmatizing the community by saying you are putting us in the same rank as a pedophile.
Alright, before
Which I can understand. But I want you to answer that before you get your question and leave it alone.
Yeah, so I think the Burglary Law is problematic for a lot of reasons. First of all, because it was a law that was instilled by our colonizers in 1868, and they removed it, and we still have it. That is a
Because
problem.
we went independent, so we
Right,
chose.
yeah.
the
So
background.
it's a problem that the government is in my asshole, pretty much. That's what it is. The government telling me what I could put in my asshole as an adult. That is a problem, and you can see specifically in the Caribbean and in sub-Saharan Africa, where HIV rates are the highest per capita in the globe, as compared to other parts of the world where anal sex is not criminalized. The fact that it's criminalized makes it harder for people to access things like comprehensive sexual and reproductive health resources when they're LGBT, for example, like what I was talking about earlier. So we have people who go to the thing sometimes to get checked out, and there are nurses who tell people, what you're doing for having anal sex, what you're doing bullying, you shouldn't be doing that, you know, it's against the law, and they leave and they don't want to come back. There are people who go to LRU because they need to get the HIV medicine, and the nurses tell them you shouldn't have been bullied in the first place.
But what about the other part of it? The other part that says it's unhealthy.
I want to make a query here.
Do they say that as well?
When nurses,
It's not healthy?
I can't.
when
It seems like it's a side response, meaning while the doctors and the nurses maybe say you shouldn't be bullied, they're not. Why health researchers has said that anal sex is unhealthy or whatever. So why isn't the nurses saying that as well, or the concentration would be more on you shouldn't be bullied?
The concentration is because straight people aren't castigated for having anal sex as much as queer people are, or men who have sex with men are.
Because they never been do what I want.
I want to clear some of that based on what you said. Remember you said that I work in medical field for a while, and you mentioned, I could tell you for a fact that one of the institutions that you just called, they actually give special privileges to the LGBT community by holding clinics after the clinic is actually finished.
Yeah, because we work with them.
Because of the stigmatization that you mentioned and such like.
Yeah, so we have.
I've also never heard a nurse said what you just said.
Because
because you didn't hear it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. But we do a lot of work. I will say we do a lot of work with healthcare providers across the country, particularly Equals as a service provider organization, has done a lot of work over the last, I would say 5 years in particular, with healthcare providers in terms of sensitization and working with the LGBT community. So it has been getting better. But these things still happen. People are still, people can't access stuff. And what the law does is it creates an atmosphere of permission. While it's not necessarily enforced on every level, it creates an atmosphere of permission to say, hey, these people are subpar or second-class citizens for the sexual behaviors that they engage in. Whether it's healthy or not, whether people think it's right or not, we have a right to do it.
Fair enough.
If, the penis was meant to put them out, but sucking dick shouldn't be illegal, should it?
Hold on, Rohan. No, you just made the point that nurses and other employees of these institutions say derogatory things to members of your community, right? So I'm going to go back to my point again. Has any of these persons ever been reported to the Ministry of Health or any authority in Barbados to say, look, this person, say if Damani was a nurse, Damani said this to this client or more than one client, he has to remove. Has any complaints ever been laid against anyone?
I'm sure they have. I don't know if they have, but I will say a lot of the time people come to our organizations and they can't, or they feel afraid to go through all of the levels that you have to go through to be like, hey, I'm gay.
The only level you have to go through if you're making a complaint is you could write a letter, you could walk into somebody's office.
Okay. But let me explain to you. If you go if you go into a space that is supposed to be safe, and you go to the person that you think you have a safe relationship with, you disclose something about yourself that is, possibly a secret, and they are discriminatory towards you, you're not gonna take it publicly. So people are afraid of coming out or being labeled.
Alright. Well, I could agree with you there, and I understand where you're coming from. So the individual who actually has the discrimination done against them, they may feel, you know what, I don't want complain because I may get ostracized next time I come in here. I may not get service that I'm looking for.
Not necessarily.
Right? No. This is an individual thing, though, right? But when the individual, as you said, the individuals come to you, or organizations that you're affiliated with, right? Has your organization ever actively made a complaint?
Right. So what I was saying earlier before I got into something else is Equals has something called the Shared Incident Database, which is a human rights reporting and documenting mechanism that's used across the region for particular vulnerable communities. So LGBT people, sex workers, people living with HIV and AIDS, people who receive a certain level of stigma and discrimination. So it's a human rights mechanism. They come and, a violation reporting mechanism. They come and they report it to us, or we can, if we know something has happened to a person, they can reach out to us. But they can just reach out to our organization and tell us they want to report something. It's up to them if they want to take it legally to a legal discourse. But what's important is that we have it recorded and it's on file. So we have a database of
you have
violations.
You have it recorded, you have it on file. Have you ever taken it to the government of Barbados? Because if you're making these claims and saying that this is what is happening actively in Barbados, right? You and I will both know that you can go and say right now, I put it on a file in my office that Kimar hit me, or that Damani slapped me, or something so, right? But until you actually make a complaint to the Royal Barbados Police Force, right? They can't actually go and investigate. Right. So I'm using that example, the police force, to say to you that if you have this evidence, right, and you have the records.
Why is evidence in quotation marks?
But because the reality situation, until you said it happened to more than one person.
Yeah.
So if it happened to more than one person, you were an advocacy group. Your job is to stand up for the rights of your community.
Yeah.
And I respect that. And I will say that if your job is to stand up for the rights of your community, then if it happened to one person, 2 persons, not right. 3 persons, this is a pattern. Right?
It's systemic.
Right.
Systemic.
So good. You bring another word here, systemic. So if it's a systemic abuse, emotional, physical, whatever it is, then it is your job as the organization, whichever organization, whether it be Pride, Equals, LGBTQI, whichever organization, to go to As Damani said, you could go to the manager of the actual facility. You got the minister. You guys have the ear of up to the Minister of Health, right? You can go to the Attorney General. You can the same way how you find time to go and intrude on Christians' marches, right? You could take 10 minutes of your morning.
How you know? Well, how you know we're not taking any time to do that?
But you said that y'all haven't made a complaint yet.
I didn't say that. I said it's up to with the shared incident database on particular. It's up to these people to decide if they want to report it to that level. But these statistics are used in our training with the healthcare workers, for example, to instill different policy in their organizations. We work closely with the family conflict unit within police department. So these things are used specifically to develop policy. But the problem is we don't have anti-discrimination legislation. So you can instill and develop policy in an institution or in an organization, but because we don't have legislation that mandates that, the policy can fall apart.
Well said, agree with you there. You said so. You use this information to develop policy. I have no issue with that. I respect that. However, if you are saying that this, and I go back to my point.
You can't develop policy if it ain't good to the policy.
If you are saying that persons have done this, you're also saying that it is up to the individual to determine if they want to take any fire or not, right? However, your organization can say to the government of Barbados or to the government of Barbados, the minister, the manager of the clinic, whoever you choose to report it to. Look, say Kimar Safri was working in the well, no, you're here. So say Kimar Safri was working in the organization as a nurse. You can say to the organization, look, Kimar Safri has been known to do this. All right. Whilst you may not want to move him, do you take the opportunity to provide training to persons like Kimar or Kimar here, if he has a view and y'all think that view is against
but Jeremy, you can't just say it. You can't just.
That is the work that has been happening.
Yeah,
we have been doing these trainings with these institutions for a while now, so that's how this thing came into play. Just when he was talking about the specific LGBT clinic that happens at a particular healthcare provision space. This is because of the training and the dialogue.
Themselves.
Pardon?
This is for the staff themselves.
No, this is for LGBT people who want to access services in that space. There's a separate clinic for them.
But you see, no, that I don't think you're getting what I'm saying.
Oh, the training for the staff?
Because if you were saying that, because at the end of the day, a building is just a stagnant object. It is the persons who occupy the building and deliver services. So I want to know if you have identified, in part, some of those healthcare providers are other service providers.
You can't say the identify.
Hold on. And say, look.
But you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't go and say, Jermaine, that it is far-fetched for anybody to go and say, Kimar discriminate against me. What evidence it is? You can't point the finger at Kimar to say that, even if you want to say it. What she will have to do is collect the data, show her overall data that within this hospital that there has been known to be discrimination against the LGBT community, and then as an advocate suggest that there will be training on how to deal with people or emotional intelligence or whatever. But you can't go and say Kimar put you out of a job.
Has been happening, and then also, but we can't. So if a person faces discrimination from one particular staff member and they don't want to report it, we can't say, hey, this person did this, but we can't name the person. But we have done training with staff. Okay. But there should be more. But it's growing. It's growing. It's a
my question,
culminative effort.
My question is on this is Rohan, is that what I find many times is that because there's several advocates within this space, yourself, Donia, Alexa, and a number of other persons, what I find is that whenever it comes out to the public, and then obviously you could say, if you want, blame the media, whenever it comes out to the public, it feels as though an LGBT community is fighting against the public to be accepted. And then when I accept, I'm not talking about human rights perspective of it, but to accept that we want to have anal sex, to accept that, and oftentimes, while I'm an advocate as well, and I work with homeless, I can't get everybody to like the homeless. I advocate and I speak to the issue, but I find that within the LGBT, is this force on people to upset we, especially the Western Hemisphere and in the Americans, is this force. Well, they don't see people going down in Iraq or one Muslim war zone and say, hey, upset me, because you know radicalized how them is. But I'm just saying, many times I find that it is this fight to upset your quote unquote your behavior, or you're wanting to do this. Well, you are not troubled to do it, meaning that I have friends that are gay personally, and I really don't care if they have sex with male or female. That's their choice. That's what they have to live with. I can live with the fact that, one, I'm a Christian and I choose not to do it because of my religious belief, but also because of my personal belief. And that is my choice. And I find that it becomes this war zone, and to press on people that don't want to upset you. One of the main things that I see that should be very acceptable across the spectrum is that y'all are treated equally as persons, that y'all are not denied any access to any health care services, and that you still have the freedom to live in Barbados, however, without any harm or without any danger made, which is the human rights aspect. But I don't think that a church or a religious body or anybody, personal, whether or not they have religious belief or not, should have to made to feel like if you don't, it would charge you. If you don't upset my wanting to have sex with a male or me wanting to be gay, that we are ostracized for it. Our religious body is there because of their religious beliefs. Whether or not you accept the church or the Bible or not, you're going to have this opposition with the church for years to come. You may have some bending to you and saying, well, but you cannot stop organization, whether it be religion or any, to support that of your belief or wanting to, or that of what you want to do. Because in all fairness, there's nobody in the LGBT community that gets stopped from doing what they do. You understand? So, and I think in fairness that the narrative of the LGBT community should be on the human rights aspect, and not so much on the aspect of whether or not I can bull or not, because that's not a question.
But whether you could bull or not is a human rights issue. It's a violation of my right to privacy. I have a right to bull.
But nobody goes into your bedroom and say, hey, come and arrest me.
But the fact that it's illegal is a problem.
But okay, you're saying, okay, hold on.
Do you feel unsafe walking down Broad Street?
If I'm holding her hand, then yeah, I would.
Why?
Because people can come and attack me. So listen, literally.
Let
me tell you.
I want to know that's personal.
Let me tell you that it's actually happened to me. I was walking with Donya on Broad Street, actually. I think it's Broad Street near Cheapside.
Right, yeah. In Barbados.
In Barbados, in Bridgetown, we were walking. We weren't even like doing. We were just walking. We went to get food or something. A man saw us and he said, "Hey, I see you on the papers." And then he started telling us how we need to be killed, how blood would start flowing on the streets of Bridgetown like swine. He started calling us pigs. Like he started like going down the line, and nobody around would say anything. The man followed us when we were walking, and this has happened a few times. Right. And I am not even like an identifiable queer person.
So I want to ask a question. You said one individual out of 270,000 people in Barbados.
It doesn't matter.
No. There's a reason why I get on this line. Suppose that one individual, right, also saw a Jewish person and said, you know what, I don't like Jews, then shouldn't go here. Suppose that individual also saw a Muslim person and said, you know what, I don't like Muslims, they shouldn't go here neither.
Hold on.
Then all of that would be wrong.
Let me address this here. What type of debate involved four men attacking one individual?
Please.
Who is
like,
just asking
a complete fucking gangbang. I don't know what the hell this is. Come on.
Hold on. So just let me.
Really?
Yeah. So just let me understand. Just let me clarify this. It's not necessarily a gangbang.
It's not a gangbang.
It's a gangbang.
And Welsh you may feel, and I also said to Rohan.
I don't need to touch you.
Hold on.
Stand my ground.
I also said that it is not a gang. We're trying to get question. The show is about putting that question. So we are trying to ask average questions. It doesn't matter what my beliefs are or what anybody believes is. It's questions that we are trying to get. And these are harsh questions because these are also questions that, and it wasn't supposed to be alone. So let's get that clear. Don was supposed to be here. But it's not that we're aiming to get back. But guys, I don't want you to feel gang bang in any sense as well. So, but I'm just asking the harsh questions because those are the harsh questions that are asked out there. And also you see I put my suggestions on the table.
I know. I get these. So these questions are
we apologize if that isn't clear. Right. One of these questions you get all the time. One of the things that you have to appreciate is that you literally never had a form like this to answer them. Well, you may get a snippet in what I'm saying is a form as in you get to be on air, not in the paper that you get 2 minutes and then you mislead.
No, I mean, we also have panel discussions and stuff. We should come to the next one.
Well, we don't even know when they are. So that's what I'm saying. So we don't want you to feel that way, and we apologize if you do. And feel that anyway in that. But again, we are just asking questions. Feeling out, there were questions that was posed to us before the show. We are just asking the questions that are coming in. So we are asking the question. Well, I am a person that love to give suggestions, so I'm also giving my suggestion. Humbly take it, or you can decline it. But you just know that these are questions that we filled out. We heard from people and we are asking. Well, it was not supposed to be Rohan alone. It was also supposed to be done here. But she's here, and so we will just be careful on that. Thank you.
So back to what you were saying.
Right. So I was saying, if that one person, and let me make this absolutely clear, it is not right on any level to discriminate against a person for being LGBTQA.
It is not right.
It is not right on any level. To discriminate against a person for being LGBTQA, Muslim, Jewish, whatever a person chooses to discriminate against a person for, right?
Yeah.
But what I wanted to know, you said that you feel unsafe because of that one incident.
No. I give you one example.
All right, so you give me one example.
Yeah.
Right.
Somebody broke into my house and left me a note that said I should burn in hell, wake up.
Well,
so she's speaking from a person, and this is what I said. That going back to what I said respectfully, that many times the LGBT community speaks, it feels like it's an attack, and somebody may come and punch you, you're gonna punch them back. That's why I said to you, I made that suggestion that these are issues that needs to be highlighted. Abuse, people breaking in your house, all of that is issues that need to be at the highest level taken seriously. And I'm saying it from a professional standpoint, and also for somebody sat in your seat as an advocate. I have homeless that incident that the guy got his face burned from the alcohol, that would not be left undone.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to take him to the police. You understand? Because while he did it of his own free will, there's still laws that could prove because the person was mentally unstable.
Yeah.
You understand that you force that person into that to eat or to do whatever. He did it for food. You understand?
Oh.
So at the end of the day, those are issues that as advocates that you highlight because you don't want to come across that the LGBT community is fighting, and most of the LGBT fight that I've seen in Barbados have been against the church. And the church have been wrong in cases. And I can say that even as a Christian. Because the church too made their fight against the LGBT community. And I don't care who the church vexed with it or not. We are not called to fight with people. We are called to pray for people.
I agree.
You understand? And when we start going out there, it feels like a tug of war between the Christians. And when a body is representing Christians, just like your body is representing the LGBT, it speaks volume because we let them say what they want to say about the LGBT, and whatever Rohan say about the LGBT is gospel. Whatever the church community that was set up say about the Christians is gospel.
But
I don't support bashing.
The conversation, even on the fact that I'm a boy gay, the conversation should be more about access to healthcare, access to
And that's what we're saying.
benefits and what's not.
But no, I was talking about the church part too, that we should not be on the attack. None of us should be on the spectrum. Even if the church speaks toward these, and I would advocate that if the church is against it, the church always speak against it. And if you are for it, you speak for it. But it should never be a battle.
Let me make my point. Every church coming up and the only narrative is that we fighting against gays. The church wrong.
The perception of it too.
Right. The church wrong just to be fighting against gays. No, the conversation from the church should not be anything about sexual orientation.
Okay.
Conversation from the LGBT community is a common factor which brings them together.
Right.
Right? But the narrative coming out should not be that, we get so that we on. The conversation should be that members of our community, be it gay or not gay, are facing certain issues.
Oppression and all that.
But so that is the narrative that we come with a lot of the time. Most of the time when we're speaking, we speak about the fact that people are being discriminated on the basis of their sexual orientation for whatever reason. I mean, the fact that they're gay is a mitigating factor, so it needs to be highlighted.
Okay.
But the thing is, so a lot of the time when you see these things happening or these conversations happening, it's in the media. And the media will sensationalize the sort of ongoing turmoil between the community and the church because they want to get views or they want to sell papers and they want to like make clickable headlines. But we do speak a lot more about than just the church. And I don't even think that, so people are entitled to practice their religion across the board, whatever religion. Religious freedom is a human right. But just as religious freedom is a human right, a right to privacy is a human right. A right to freedom of association is a human right. A right to freedom of torture and cruel and unjust and inhumane treatment, those are all human rights. So people are free to practice their religion, but somebody's religion cannot dictate my behavior.
And it shouldn't.
Right. So
And
it has no place
just
in law.
vice versa.
Right.
Nobody's religion should dictate. Because I could say publicly, and I'm a Christian, and I don't support being. I don't want to. I'm not gay. Put it this way. Whether or not I see it as wrong spiritually, it is still what I've always accepted. It is your choice to live how you want to live and to serve who you want to serve. If somebody identified and said to me, I want to be Muslim and not Christian, it is your job to serve who you want to serve. My job will be to continue to be who I am in Christ that allows for me to shine as a Christian. So when you look at me, I shall line up as a Christian. Just like if I look at you, I can see you line up as gay, fine. You look at me, you would always see that thing. You don't have to appreciate it. They don't have to appreciate it. So if we as Christians don't remain in that humbleness and take it where we need to take and deal with it how we need to deal with it, it becomes a reaction when they speak and you become a reaction when the others speak. You understand where I'm from? And that's why I said most of this fight should be really on human rights.
Plus, those in the churches be a little good to call God. It would say some gays and homosexual. I think they're not in church and they don't clean that. So I don't see sometimes where they would.
I suppose it's more in the Catholic.
Where they would try to come out and
more.
try to tell anybody who they should and shouldn't be with, right? But as somebody made the point that the church should be more focused on praying and what's not, I think the church has bigger issues to deal with as it relates to advocacy and what's not, right? What my suggestions, you say like suggestions, my suggestions is that the church should stick to what it's really and truly rule that is trying to effect change. In people's lives and what's not. If let's just say LGBT community people come into the church, you can't stand up and say don't come.
They have to be embraced.
Right.
Everyone has to be embraced.
My thing is, as opposed to getting in a back and forth war and banter, we should have some type of coalition at the table with the church without the bigotry, without the judgment, without the name calling, and try to understand where the LGBT community coming from and try to put point of views on the table. Obviously, you will have some person in the middle mediating because sometimes trying to argue a religion is just it's the end of the day. But we pass the fact now that this is a sort of moral issue. We pass that. Times have changed and what's not. So it's time for the different players and people to come to the table and say, hey, look, well, on behalf of the LGBT, this is what we are facing coming out of religious-based organizations.
But not only that, Kimar, one of the things that may add to that, right, is that losing my train of thought here, as it relates to the LGBT community and the church. Both of the LGBT and the church is what I call like a converting kind of road. You understand? Whereas, and for somebody that, and I've known people that were LGBT that are no longer LGBT because they went into the church and decided to change their life, give their life to God and go on that path. I've also known people that was in church that are not LGBT, and I find that both are very converting roads. Right, in terms of converting.
So people who are LGBT and in the church.
And
correct.
And they're both. And I said, agree with Kimar that once the church focus on what the church is supposed to be focused on, and when we look like a battling ship, it doesn't speak well. Just like as I said to the and I mean fair, LGBT community does not sound good battling Christians. Christians does not sound good battling LGBT. I don't care if these men are more senior than I am, or think they know Jesus more than I am. Right is wrong, and it has scriptures to back these things. You understand? There's some things as Christians do that public fighting don't need to be done because certain that you need to do things. The other thing, right? Let me just highlight people. You see this policy talk about whether or not to change Burglary Law or not. We could talk to coast gone home, right? It is only a set of people in Parliament that could do that. And while we may put the pressure can come from you, the LGBT community, and then the church community.
Not only church community, but white Barbados.
But why the Barbados regardless? Why the Barbados? At the end of the day, them 30 that sit down in Parliament will make that decision whether they get pressure from the international or not.
It's not only that, if somebody brings a case, it could be made by the, so it doesn't have to be a Parliament decision. So what happened in Trinidad, for example, is that a gay man challenged the state, and he said this law is in violation of my human rights, and it was struck down. So this could happen in Barbados if somebody decided, and
you did.
Yeah.
To Alex, but
not through Alexa. Throughout the Eastern Caribbean, I think it's 5 Eastern Caribbean territories, it's being filed against the states as a violation of human rights, and I believe that it will be struck down. That's my
You mean
personal.
in all states?
Yeah, in Barbados and the other territories that is being challenged in.
So I want to question, Rohan.
When you say struck down, sorry, you're talking from a Supreme Court or you're talking from
a legal perspective?
From a legal perspective, but who has to do it?
No, once it's done by the
Supreme Court, right?
Yeah, it has
to come off the law books in Barbados because then there will be a precedent to actually think it. But
you gotta get a judge that would take.
Yeah.
But that could be then don't forget it could still be challenged.
It could be, but I think it'll be a successful thing.
But don't think it will go unchallenged though.
I don't think it'll go unchallenged, but I do think that it will be struck down.
What I want to ask you is this, right? And these were some of the questions I wanted to pose to you previously. So you said you think that this challenge will be successful, the Burglary laws will remove off the books, right? So I am assuming that.
Sorry, don't lose your train. Is that the only law that you're trying to get struck?
So people actually just focus on the Burglary Law, but and I think this is part of people just focusing on gay men and anal sex. But there's also the Serious Indecency Act, which criminalizes. It's very vague. It criminalizes use of the genitals for sexual arousal or gratification. So that is.
Calm down on big language.
No, that is the actual wording of the law.
Oh, but give it in
so
layman
what it
terms.
actually means is that anything that you do with your private parts that is not to make a baby is illegal.
So anal sex.
Oral sex is illegal in Barbados today. Yes. That is part of the serious.
I didn't know that.
Oral sex is illegal. Fingering somebody is illegal. Doing anything with your own genitals that is not for the purpose of making
so it's
a
not
baby.
penis entering vagina illegal.
Even if penis entering vagina and it's not to have a baby, if it's just for fun and for pleasure, it's illegal. Just go home and look at your constitution. Pull up the constitution now. Section 12 of the Sexual Offences Act.
The money you have been about here illegally having sex.
The man
So this is why this is a human rights issue. You think it should be legal for you to
sorry,
have rights?
I personally believe, right, that all the human rights that I got, some of it's bullshit.
Yeah.
That's my view.
So that exaggeration of the law.
That's
Let me say this.
Yeah, really the bit.
I want
to me here good.
Definitely missing.
That's a myth. I mean,
no, that's what it is. That's what it says. So now you're like, wait, what?
Okay, so here, so if you want me to give you a little,
so you're telling me that a husband and wife cannot have sex
pleasure
unless
sex,
not for gratification.
not for.
And this is actually in laws of Barbados.
Yes.
So let me get this clear. Well, Barbados have always known to be a country. Why then, just like the Burglary, why then has this not been an issue where people have found to be charged for? I mean, I want to be made clear. I've had sex on the beach and I've done things and I've had a lot of pleasure sex before.
I don't want to know what part you had sex in.
I ain't tell you which beach. other than Accra. But
Hot pot.
hot pot too. But
I was only saying that was you.
I would not. But I'm just saying that. I mean, you're trying to tell us then
It
that
is section 12 here.
all of these sexual acts that people have been committed in Barbados is illegal. Is illegal, and the only 2 times I've ever had to thing is when I get my 2 children. So I only have 2 legal sex in my life.
Hold on, we can find this law, we can read this law.
But the thing is, people don't even talk about that stuff. People only talk about the Burglary Law because it's a homophobia thing. That's what it is.
But the boy didn't really care about the fact that that law in the books, law in reality.
That particular law, because I mean, like, how much?
That was
No, but
still
let's find this
but that was
law.
still stipulated
Let's find this
that,
law that she's speaking about,
most of us are-
so that we
are-
can then call for this particular law to be struck off the books.
So this is also being challenged, Burglary and serious indecent
Is all in one? Because
Yes.
it's one law.
Yeah.
So by
Well,
striking
there are
that, no.
2 sections.
But by striking it, you strike the whole law. You have to strike the whole law. You can't strike. You ain't striking piece of the law.
No.
You have to strike it.
Two sections.
Because removing the Burglary Law means that you remove that stipulation on pleasure sex as well.
Yes.
Don't forget, so I have some questions to ask you still.
Yeah.
Okay, but I want to see this law
Let
first.
me read
So give me some comments while you do that here. Give me some comments.
Jocelyn Miller has said, I have no problem with anyone that identifies as LGBT. However, the LGBT community want to force their ideology on others. And I assume there is opposition to it. It's then called discrimination. I live in New York. I have to deal with new employees coming in wanting to be identified with a pronoun as their name. So we all have to tiptoe around this person so they don't sue the company for discrimination. If I am employing you, then you have to follow my company's rules or work elsewhere.
Oh my God.
In my view, the minority is holding the majority hostage.
I don't know.
Open another tab. I'll keep that. I won't keep that.
You refer to that.
Yeah, but for me, challenging that though, even if the person is a rule in your organization should not be no gays allowed. If you're saying there's rules in your organization, the person has to follow, you can respect that. But it should not be. You can't be gay. That's not a rule. That's discrimination.
I don't think
Oh,
that's
right,
a
look.
rule, but however,
This is a specific law.
Alright, hold on, we found
We found the law,
Let
people.
me read it. An act of serious indecency is defined as an act, and this is now in brackets, whether natural or unnatural, by a person involving the use of the genital organs for the purpose of arousing or gratifying sexual desire. The penalty for this offense largely depends on the age of the victim.
So you're saying that?
So you see, it's a very vague law, but what it says in essence is if you use your genitals for pleasure, that it's illegal. That's what the law says.
you see that, because you don't think
Then all of a sudden I was like, what? People,
Karen, you got-
so people don't know.
you
I
got
think
one.
a big problem is the fact that
Because
people also
it's a
don't know the
natural,
law,
it's a
right?
natural, a natural.
It's a
What is
natural and
natural and
unnatural.
natural?
Right,
That-
so
that's very
that's
vague.
up to
Natural, based upon what I understand to be, is a penis
P&C,
entering a
right,
vagina.
yeah.
Or
That's
natural would be the
Yeah.
other way around.
Natural
Since you
will be a
have,
penis
since
entering
you
a
have studied this law,
so sorry.
you can tell the viewers what year this law was passed.
1868
Well,
by the British
So
colonial
the British
government.
is right.
Yeah,
But
and
while
it's
the-
been there since.
so we have not dropped that underneath the British. We've kept that.
No, so when Barbados got its independence,
We were chosen to keep what law we wanted to keep.
well, there was a thing called the Savings Clause. So that certain laws that were passed before Barbados made its own constitution as an independent state had to remain in the constitution. The only people who could strike it down is Parliament if they decide. But now people are going to contest the law, so we'll see where that goes. But after Barbados became independent, then in 1967, Britain went on to repeal the law on their own. So they struck it down
Right,
a
and
long
our
time ago.
independent
but you know,
independence allow it to come back.
I was
on.
reading this morning, right, that whilst Britain went ahead and struck down their laws, that St. Vincent
Yeah, in
actually introduced
1978.
their laws in
Before,
1978
yeah, before
after they had become an independent nation.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, the LGBTQI community argument has always been that these are colonial laws, but here we have a case in the Caribbean, the same OECS that you're challenging, where the laws were introduced by an independent country who decided this is the direction that we as a country want to go.
I got a
And
question.
in my
But then you stop
opinion,
what?
I still think that's a remnant, like
I'm
a
still trying to
relic
find
of
any clause,
colonial
but it's
mindset
there.
and colonial mindset. I still think that's a relic of colonialism. Because
I
where did
think
that
it-
thought
I
process
think-
even come from? Because before we were colonized, the indigenous people who occupied this land, and much of the people who came from the Western African territories, where our forefathers and foremothers and ancestors were stolen from, they celebrated gender and sexual diversity. This attitude and mindset that we have towards gender and sexual diversity did not come around until colonization.
What is gender and sexual diversity?
Anybody so the idea that sexuality is fluid, gender is fluid, these things exist on a spectrum, they're not just one or the other, and it's not just...
Alright, so, you see, now, let me say this to you, Rohan.
Who were the first two humans on Earth?
Let us not go back there, Rohan.
I asked the question, who were the first two humans on Earth?
In your belief, it will be Adam and Eve and not Adam and Steve.
So right, but
In your
before we
belief,
think, let me just
Hold on,
ask
let
this,
me
right?
read Mark.
This is not only directly related to LGBT people,
Right, that's what you said.
No, you relates to everybody.
but
Yeah.
but I still can't take this because we're not seeing it in any legislation and looking at the other areas surrounding it. Right, this is just basically a small snippet of it. I personally don't think this relates to having
Pleasure sex.
pleasure sex. It
Wait.
says using the genital organs for the purpose of arousing or gratifying sexual desire.
That's literally sex for pleasure. That's literally what
Well,
it says.
you need to get
Sexual
you need to get legal interpretation before we can make any
Yeah.
pronouncements on that law. That's my honest view.
He can interpret.
Oh, okay.
A lot of
Penalty for this offense depends on.
So you're trying to say that my wife is a victim if I just having pleasure sex, or I is a victim if we just having pleasure sex? So
I don't know who would be charged. I don't know who is the...
Charge me.
Yeah,
I have no problem.
I don't know.
But right, so Donia, I'm sorry, not Donia,
Rohan.
Rohan. Right. The question I was asking you previously before, so I don't lose my train of thought.
Mhm.
So you're going after the Burglary laws now. You want to have those struck down in the carriage. Alright? So I'm assuming that what will be next will be gay marriage. Well, same-sex marriage. Let's not call it gay marriage, right? Right. So I'm assuming the next step will be same-sex marriage, right? But there's a train of thought in Barbados where people say, when you open these floodgates, right, and you go after the Burglary laws, same-sex marriage, what happens when a person who in this society now we will consider as a pedophile, right, comes and says, hey, the same way that persons who identify as homosexual can have the laws modified to more or less accommodate them, why can't I, who decide that I want to have sex with a child, have the laws modified to accommodate me? Or what happens when a person who decides that, you know what, he want to have sex with a dog, a cat?
Bestial. But that creates the door for bestiality, doesn't it?
Right. It opens the door
By
to a
dropping
lot of
the law
things.
for burglary mean that you can have sex with.
Let me just say that this is about sexual relations between consenting adults. And a child cannot consent to sex with an adult.
Never.
An animal cannot consent to sex with a person. And if a person thinks that they're along the same lines, that person cannot understand consent, and that is troubling. That like
And
that's
no
the
law
bottom
and no
line.
law says, let's be clear, that if the burglary law is dropped, that it opens door for to have sex with
No,
animals. It
because
doesn't.
bestiality is illegal
Yes.
on its own.
On its own, okay.
And pedophilia is illegal on its own.
So it doesn't open door.
Yeah.
My question to you though,
Uh-huh.
my very, very.
Oh, so
very
I want to come back to the same-sex marriage.
Yeah, no, it can tie into that. It ties into that.
Yeah.
Now, under the laws of Barbados, as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, the only person I know that can marry persons in Barbados are the said pastors,
I'm not sure I'm married.
Yeah.
This is a piece.
yeah, just a peace married.
Well, this is
I'm married.
Yeah,
Right?
Sure.
Chaplains.
Chaplains, right? I've found though, well, a magistrate only does it within the court, the construct of the court, because the magistrate don't go and stand up like a priest. I think previously it was hearing that people could lose their license for not wanting to marry a same sex. Now,
In this country.
But same-sex marriage
no,
is not illegal.
it is
Yeah.
no. What I'm saying, when they were having discussion around it, they were saying that people, if the law is passed for same sex marriage, then if you, and we saw it with a case in the wherever the woman didn't want to make cake for the US, and the woman that lost her job at the registry because she didn't want to register the same-sex person.
That's their rights.
Right? It wasn't she right?
No, but that's,
no. She was doing she's job.
She's a government.
She's a government job. So I would get that. No, hold on. We gotta be fair here. It's not a right. It's a job.
It's a job.
So if you don't want to do it, you should have called somebody.
You shouldn't go to
You
job.
shouldn't go to job.
Right.
Period.
I disagree.
Right? Now, if this law is passed, I believe that the community, LGBT community, well, I know for sure facts that that the Christian community will not marry the LGBT. Some, because some Christians different, they would probably marry for different religions with different marriage. I believe
I like Charles
that that the pastor should not lose his license for his belief, because also his belief ties into his practice
and his fundamental
human rights. I always say that if you're going to open the door for same-sex marriage, I have no say over it, as in the legislative body has it, then there should be appointing persons to conduct same-sex marriage. That does not infringe on my rights as a human or my religious right, because that is where you can have two battles or a new battle.
So
what is your take?
So I think it's really interesting when people even bring up the topic of same-sex marriage, because this is not a topic on any of the so even after the Burglary Law issue, you said like next on the agenda would be same-sex marriage. I don't think so. What I think is more pressing is anti-discrimination legislation, so that it will be illegal for people to discriminate against people on the basis of their sexual orientation and gender identity, particularly when it comes to accessing services, because that's important. So that's next on the agenda.
And then after that would be
the agenda.
Same-sex will come up.
The agenda is equality and equity. I'm going to say that.
How far down the road is same-sex
I don't know. That's not anywhere on my radar, and nobody that I know is focused even remotely on same-sex marriage. But I will say that if down the line same-sex marriage is legalized, that I don't think any religious leader should be forced to or should lose their license for not wanting to perform a certain service. But I do think because marriage is also a legally binding agreement, it's a contract between two people. So I do think if it's legalized and a government person doesn't want to
only two people.
Two people.
In Barbados it's only two. We don't do what you call
polygamy.
Polygamy. We don't do.
It's called it polyamory.
I don't think we're on the same page.
I understand what you get from.
What are you asking?
If it would be open for two persons to marry to one person?
What's the question?
You got me confused.
Well, that's the
I'm
question.
not sure. I feel like there's undertones here. I'm not.
First you got to understand what marriage.
Man and a woman.
And
one man, one woman.
And it has nothing really to do with what the country or state. It's not just between man and woman. It's man,
woman, God. Okay.
Oh,
I mean, I'm an atheist, so I don't believe that.
You don't believe that?
You believe that, but I don't. I'm an atheist, and I want to get married.
Well, you're an atheist.
But remember though the Bible. Remember though, just like I think in some court, and I know in some religions, like if I go to court, they will ask me to swear on the Bible, or if I choose. Sometimes I don't, because I don't swear by the Bible. So I would say I just take the oath for whatever the case may be. So I mean, if you don't, Christians cannot force that you go under God, because there are people that don't believe in God.
I mean, there are plenty of atheists who are married, you know, but as I see it as a legally binding contract, an agreement between two people. I don't believe in God, so God isn't part of my marriage when I get married.
Right, just
but
between
so
you and
I do think that if a religious leader or faith-based leader doesn't want to perform a marriage between two people, they shouldn't be forced to. But I do think if it's a legal thing that people are allowed to marry, that a government worker shouldn't be able to deny people that. That's so a government official is different from a faith, because religious people do have the freedom of religious practice as well.
Do you accept that before that government worker is a government worker, that they are also an individual, and just as though you were saying that for that government worker to not marry you, that they're infringing on your rights, right?
That's why she wanted kids, because she had religious freedom.
Hear me. For that government worker to not marry a same-sex couple, alright, that government worker is infringing on the rights of the same-sex couple, right? But the government worker also, they got something called the Safety and Health at Work Act, and they got also laws that come out to protect the rights of individuals. Doesn't that government worker has the right to say, look, whilst I work in the government, I fundamentally don't believe in same-sex marriage, and I should not be forced because I'm a government worker.
So that's what she's saying. That is not being forced, but you can put. You see, one of the things that we gotta understand,
It's like a very convoluted hypothetical situation.
So, but not only that, the thing is that we in all fairness, right? When you change a lot of laws as it relates to burglary and as it relates to same-sex marriage, it's then where the government has to strategically put people in place to help, because if a person say morally and everybody has the right to practice religion, that based on my religious belief, and that's why the person won the cases in the States. You can't force them, but you can also place somebody there that would do it, or move the person because that woman, I think she was a head registrar or something, and she had to sign off as well. You can remove that person and put somebody else because, well, it is something that you may say you don't want, or you may say if it is law, it has to be respected.
Yeah, because I mean, similarly, if a healthcare worker, if a gay person or LGBT person or whatever comes to a healthcare worker and they say, oh, I want this, I want condoms, I want lube, they can't say, well, I'm a Christian, I don't think you should be having gay sex, so I'm not going to give this to you.
It would be wrong in that context. We have a question. Here.
So the question is, so what about trans species, people who identify as an animal? Do they then lose their rights to consent to sex since they identify as an animal?
I'm not going to answer that question.
That is a very serious question.
I'm not answering that question.
I don't even know what's trans species.
What's trans species?
I don't know. I don't know what that person's
That's an alien?
about, so.
That's an alien?
I don't know.
Huh?
Is that person's trans species?
That's a plant?
I don't know what it is.
That's
So I don't
that might be about me. That's no.
That might be about me a grade.
That's a noun.
So that's my argument with it, and while I would like to see the church plays its part a little bit more as it relates to what we are called to do as a church, I would really like to see this constant fight, because while some battles are good, I feel that we sometimes battle and then there's the battlefield. But then we off the battlefield fighting when you should be bringing the battle on the field. And that is where sometimes get mixed up for me, that I find that it is more of, and I see it when our prominent leaders do it, it's distasteful in some sense. And I'm not saying, as a Christian again, I'm not saying do not challenge the LGBT community. And I'm not going to sit down here and tell you to back down either, because I've always said one thing to my wife. While as a Christian, and I may say you're a sinner, a sinner will sin, and a Christian should live like a Christian. You understand where I'm coming from? And that is where the fundamental respect comes from. That if a man can run me as a Christian and start cussing bad words, that's his right. But I could choose to be in the second, or I could choose to take myself out of the second. But I ain't gonna tell you shut up, because that's your mouth, that's your right, that's how you choose to live. Who you call God, who you call God. And my mother always say, is where you make up your bed, you can lie in it.
Agreed.
And when we come to that respect for each other, and I said, you have gay friends, and that I like dearly, and sometimes they behave far better than Christian. But I'm just saying, because I have a respect for them, and I always say, don't enforce your ways on me. I will not enforce my ways on you. But I know when I get into my closet, I will pray for the person. That is my job as a Christian, to pray that that person come away whatever. And when we take that stance as people and as Christians, that you would see the ickering and the bickering stop, because we have to know how to fight and when to fight, where to fight. You understand? Because then this here, as Christians, whatever we do, people look on. Everybody into please with what you say because you say. When the LGBT community do something, people look on, and everybody into please with what you say or do. And that is where I think sometimes, yes, you gotta be vocal, yes, it's called for things, but you gotta know when, where, and how.
Ron, I want to ask another question, but this is one that is raging in America, and U.S. now. At what age do you think that persons should be educated about LGBTQA, your issues, and your rights?
I don't think that there should be age.
I feel like whenever people have an awareness of being straight and people have an awareness of sexuality, whenever children start asking questions about sexual orientation, whenever children are old enough to have a consciousness about what's going on, where the babies come from, when people have an awareness of sexuality and gender in general, I think there should be an awareness of the fact that LGBT people exist.
So you think that
we exist.
So you're saying then, and I just want to clarify from my personal consumption here.
Mm-hmm.
You would not be against. See, you are affiliated with many organizations,
Mm-hmm.
Equal, Pride, LGBTQA. I can't remember the names of the others, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're saying then that the government of, and we live in Barbados, so the government of Barbados, if they were to approach you and say, hey, I want you to go into the primary schools or the secondary schools and start educating children about these issues and about who you are and your community and what you stand for, that you would openly do it?
Absolutely.
And they would not be opposed.
And
to
I think one, an issue that people have is that when they think LGBT, immediately they think sex. Immediately, sex. But like, it's much more than sex. I'm much more than the sex that I have at home, who I have sex with. I think that age appropriate education is important. And not just about LGBT people, but like, we need comprehensive gender and sexuality education across the board. That is age appropriate. And so if you're having gender and sexuality education, it should include sexualities and gender across the spectrum on an age appropriate level.
But let me
so
tell
I'm
you,
not going to go to 8-year-olds and talk about anal sex.
But wait, no, I just want to say what she said. I remember was speaking to a teacher the other day. You know, she shared some things about schools, primary schools to be like that. Young boys were kissing their primary level, each other. Young girls were kissing each other. So while we may say that it is wrong for LGBT community to go in there, remember the key word is to go in there to educate. They ain't like they go in there to convert. Remember, if it's education, they got a problem. I got okay with it, because again, when the children see things at home, when they watch things on TV, when they think, they come to school with public affection, display of affection.
So you're prepared to expose your children to that?
No,
it's not that me, it's the word that we live. I personally, as a Christian, I don't watch violent pictures with my children. I don't watch sexual context pictures with my children.
Okay.
However, community at large may not be doing that. Where you may have a mother that kissing, a father that kissing in front of your mother, and don't get me wrong, sure my wife would affectionately show hug up and thing in front of children, and they come back and hug up we feet too, and they know hug and kiss before we left home. They were hugging kids before they left home. There may be a community where a family meaning where cussing is okay, having sex in front of children is okay, bringing over 3 men is okay, bringing over 3 women okay. So what then you easily, we as a community and as a culture, we start influencing our children negatively wrong.
Okay.
From the start, right? And well, you may be doing it from the time your child was a toddler. I know your child get the age appropriate, where they're more sensitized, and obviously that learning stage where they're picking up. They will come to school and start to do public display public affection based on what they see. So it is boys on boys, girls on girls, girls on boys, boy on girls. So I'm just saying is, whereas education, I'm not saying just like it would be wrong for Christians to go into school and say, hey, you gotta be a Christian. It would be wrong for the LGBT community to go and say, hey, you gotta be a lesbian or gay.
Right,
so you're but it's not wrong for them to go in and say, hey, so this is what it means, this is what, but we don't condone and that and this and that. So
so I don't think anything is wrong with normalizing the idea that or the fact that LGBT people exist. Also, like, LGBT children exist. Like, people don't just like wake up one day as adults and be like, oh my god, I'm gay. I mean, some people might, but lots of people have known since they were children that they were queer or trans. How did you know you were straight?
That's an interesting question, Damani.
when they didn't know that was straight.
Yeah.
When they see a sexy girl on the road, I'm like, yo!
Because
She
I'm
look good.
attracted to women.
I'm attracted to women too. That's just it. Like, that's the bottom line. It's really not very complicated.
I guess based upon the environment you live in, you see certain things. For example,
But boys who just go with
do you-
boys and girls that
what
go
are
with
your
girls.
thoughts on members from the LGBT community adopting children?
That's a very interesting question.
LGBT
That's an
people
open-
have had families forever.
No,
like,
adopting, but imagine.
I don't think anything
but
is
if
wrong
if you have
with-
2 males living in a house together, 2 males, so they both identify as homosexual males,
Yes.
right? And you decide you want a son. Do you think? And I'm asking. Well, you obviously are here representing Pride Barbados, LGBTQA, she.
I know what that
Barbados,
means.
right? Do you think that those 2 men should have the right to adopt a young, impressionable male child, right? And say, well, we're gonna raise you as our son. Now, bear in mind that I am not sure if the child is gonna know he has 2 fathers or he has a mother and a father. I don't know how the dynamics will work there, right?
Okay.
But I guess that's what the man wants to know. What is your view on that?
So the question is, you're asking me, if a child is abandoned and left in an orphanage, if 2 loving parents decide that they want to bring this child into their home and
2
nurture them,
males.
if 2 men decide that they want to bring this abandoned child into their home and nurture him and love him and raise him, if I think that's right, yes, I do.
Because
Yes.
In doing so, well, I don't want to speak about 2 men because you're not a man, you're a woman. So 2 women, okay, the child will grow up seeing 2 women having an affectionate relationship, girlfriend and girlfriend, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
Will that child also will be taught that there's also boyfriend and girlfriend?
Well, we live in a world where it's majority straight, so they're not gonna it be insulated in the house.
No, but
all the time.
that children are very susceptible at a young age.
Yeah, okay, but let me tell you something.
And therefore, what they see their parents do, they will copy.
Okay, so let me tell you this though. Most LGBT people grew up seeing their mother and father together,
right.
and they still ended up queer.
You go back now to the cause.
they had such a
So
relationship.
basically,
No, I'm saying there is no cause. Some people are just queer, some
do you,
people are just straight.
there's a notion out there that it's something spiritual. Do you believe so?
I don't believe in spirit.
She
so-
can actually, because she
Nah,
doesn't
actually-
believe. All right, let me ask a question that is realistic, and I think that the guys might be BSing around it. Let me ask you. There's the impression that from people that believe, and I put it in bracket, that if 2 men raise a child, they believe the child go to be gay too, or they believe that the child may get trouble too. They're the same thing with
We
the
make trouble.
Molested.
right? That's the impression,
Okay.
right? Just like it believe that if 2 women raise a child, that they could be molested or they could be think to come up gay. Now let me just give you my perspective before.
Someone asked a question here on Facebook.
But no, let me answer my question and then think. I personally believe, while I may not, well, let me just put it. I personally believe that 2 gay persons, whether it be 2 male and female or 2 male and female, raising a child, in my belief, once they're loving parent, that child will be raised properly. Raised. Well, I believe also that that child will be taught to love who he or she pleases, whether it be that of 2 males or that of 2 females. I will have don't say that I've seen and I've heard, and statistics is also they prove that a gay couple raises children something better than we people that got male and female. And I would only pray that that child be raised to, yes, love whom he or she pleases, and understand love, whether coming from wherever, but at the same time, I just believe that if a child is out there in need of love, and you again off you asked to raise our child, but this boy again off asked to raise our child,
Yeah.
I
raise each other.
actually believe that 90% population don't even understand what love is.
Right? Correct. What that means? Because I'm just saying that I just believe that the child needs the love and the care and the attention. That if anybody, I would just, because we may be worrying if the child getting bull or if the child getting whatever or
No,
the child
you
get
call it
raised,
murder, you call it
no,
molested.
or where the child, no, whatever when you want to call it, it is seen that the society which we live in with mother and father is downright in garbage.
Alright,
So
well,
we can't pull it into the LGBT community and say, hey, let two men raise a child, because I can tell you, just like a single man could raise children. My mother was single, she raised 4.
So Kimura,
just
you're saying if you have a gay couple and a heterosexual couple, you would give that child,
The gay
example,
couple.
adoption to the gay couple over the heterosexual couple?
yeah.
Why should
Yeah.
it should be whichever people
Hell
are
yeah.
most suitable to raise
It's
a child
who's
in the
suitable to-
environment. And I will say that in the Caribbean we idealize the idea of this nuclear family, but that has not been a reality. Just like you said, we have so many single parent households. We have so many different diverse
And that's a problem.
family styles. I don't know if it's a problem, but I will say that it's a reality. We have a lot of diverse family styles. Like, this has been a reality for a long time. And also LGBT people have been raising children. I had this sign on my placard that LGBT people didn't fall from breadfruit trees. We have been parts of families. So LGBT people are parents and daughters and sons and cousins and nieces. So we have been parts of family units. We don't exist in the shadows of society. Like, we are part of the society. We are fully integrated, and I think it's a visibility issue. People talk about us as if we are like other and like hypotheticals, but this is reality.
You're part. Alright,
Yeah.
now, I have a question here from
Wait,
Facebook
sorry.
to you directly,
Sorry.
Rohan.
I just want to say what she said. Remember too, right? A lot of people will kill me for saying it. I don't care. There are pastors or godchildren in this country who come up seeing a spiritual grounding and seeing the pastors, their fathers and their mother lead thousands to Jesus,
Yeah.
right? But their children go on so, and their children go on so.
But
What I-
they,
but no.
they also gay
But
pastors.
but no. What I'm saying is that word that is a child when it comes up, whether it's two men or 2 women, a man and a woman,
Yeah.
will make a choice for yourself. You know,
I agree.
nobody can tell that child what to do when that child get to a certain age. So you can see your child and you see 2 mummies, 2 daddies, a mommy and a daddy. When that child get of age, he can do so that. Well, I don't like the mommy daddy thing. I like 2 mommy, I like 2 daddy. So you understand?
Yeah.
But it ain't gonna stop them from loving the person, you know. It's just that they ain't want to be a part of it. That's the choice, because I've seen it where pastor children do so that pastor about they leading all people to sheep and the children so. I've known pastors that leading sheep too and their children gay.
Yeah, I also want
So,
to
I'm
address
just saying.
what you said was that people
So
think
it's very
that
important.
if 2 men raise a child, 2 gay men raise a child, the child will be molested or the child will turn out to be gay. Straight men molest children all the time. all the time. That, no, listen, this is an insidious problem.
Nah, boy,
A lot of children
I'm
and
gonna rough
young
up there,
girls,
boy.
young boys are molested by straight men. And nobody's saying that children shouldn't be around straight men.
So-
That's
so-
not
so-
a reflection on straight men.
hold on.
If a pedophile is a
Hold on.
pedophile, they're a pedophile, regardless of this.
And doesn't mean they're gay.
No,
And there's a-
pedophilia
right.
is a disorder on its own. It has nothing to
Right,
do
so
with
no, what I'm
sexual
saying
orientation.
for the viewers out there, if a man trouble a young boy, it doesn't mean he's
It doesn't
gay.
mean he's gay. It means
just
he's a
means
pedophile.
He's attracted to
Yeah.
children. Or it doesn't mean that he even go wrong big men. He just
Yeah.
go wrong
Little children.
little
Yeah,
children.
I mean, so there's
Well,
a-
so again, you don't pay here without
A pedophile, while not gay, attracts to children, not growing men.
But if he ain't gay, you will attract to the young girls. But a man,
No, so he's not gay. So we're just saying
He's a pedophile.
He's a pedophile.
So
He's just a pedophile. He's just a pedophile. He's not a gay pedophile. He can't be.
Let's not go
No. You can't say go off topic because
What's the topic?
if he say the statement, at the end of the day, we don't want to give people the wrong impression.
No, pedophile.
A pedophile is a pedophile. You cannot say yes. Maybe let's say there's a gay pedophile. That's different. But he's only gay, but he's still a pedophile.
Okay.
But even if somebody's just troubling young boys, it does not mean he's
It doesn't
gay.
mean he's gay. He's
It's just
just
a
a
pedophile.
pedophile.
Just like if a man
He's a
going
gay
troubling, no, the same thing
Just
is
a
that.
pedophile.
Being troubling a young,
But-
young
No.
girl.
Troubling children. Period is pedophilia.
So if
Yes.
but so
Period.
if no, so to be
He's
fair,
also gay.
no, to be fair,
Right.
but stop being ignorant. No? To be fair,
how you
argument.
gonna
To be
You
fair,
touching little boys,
hello,
you're gay.
hello,
No, you're a pedophile.
You can you listen.
God.
What's your stance on this?
Hold on, man. Stop.
Abba has
Stop.
Stop.
Stop. We can't. Don't be. No. Don't be. No. Don't be unfair. Don't let me be unfair here. Because we gotta have a balance. If a man who is a pedophile troubles young boys, I don't care if only he's a blasted pedophile.
Yes.
Because then you will have to find a word for a pedophile that troubles little girls.
Yeah, do you walk around calling them straight pedophiles?
You can't call them straight pedophiles.
It doesn't matter. Like, sexual orientation has nothing
Nothing
to do with
it. So
with pedophilia.
you can't put that on the LGBT community. It is wrong, because then people watching will start to believe that it's gay as a gay pedophile. We're not saying it. They don't have gay people that are pedophiles or whatever, but you cannot put the two together and say every time a child is touched, that man gay. As long as you touch a child on the age, whether it be boy or girl, I don't care if you're gay or straight,
You're a pedophile.
you're a blasted pedophile and you should be locked the hell up.
Alright.
And that's it. So leave it there and don't press it that it is misleading.
Alright, so let me address a question to you that was asked to you.
Yeah.
Alright, okay. So Jocelyn Maynard here, she says, and this is with respect to when we were talking about training in schools, with the LGBTQA community going into schools and educating children. So she said, well, while you're conducting the training, my job is to make sure my staff follow the letter of the law in terms of this country. Point blank period. That is number one. Number two.
What's the law? Doesn't.
No.
I don't understand.
I'm just reading what she says here. But she says in the second part, if this was something that the ministry would agree to, which would be your community going into the schools and educating the children, would you be okay if parents are out of having their children in the classroom to hear you speak?
That's their choice.
Okay.
So I think again to the perception is is that, and that is what I said to you, Rohan. It's important, right? Because people got this notion that because an LGBT person comes up to your children or comes up to you, they come in to make you gay or to make you ill. And that alone is what I said to. I said to that the narrative has to be on the human rights. Because people got this thing that if you touch me, I gay. Or people got this notion, whatever the case may be, right? So it is important that people don't leave with the perception that I have gay friends and they talk to them and they have a very good relationship and good conversation with them. And that don't mean they're gay. You understand? So I think that has to be one that we respect. That just because a gay person can run, I would never be friends with a gay person. Don't mean no, they can't carry me. And it makes it out like if the person is not a human being. Like if the person doesn't have a feeling or affection. But you know what, it's we harder when it's home.
Yeah.
Because when you go to a family that gay or whatever, all of a sudden you become acceptable to the whole gay. And I think that is where the human rights needed. That I don't care if it's the church, I don't care if it's the government, I don't care who it is. That the LGBT not look, well, that may be a choice of living. It doesn't take away from that there's a person.
I understand. I have another question for you, Ron.
We're gonna wrap up now.
Okay. I have another question for you, and this is my final question for you tonight. With reference to transgender persons in Barbados. I know I have not said transgender males nor females. So with reference to transgender persons, you know there's the argument worldwide now, not in Barbados specifically, but there's the argument worldwide where persons who would have been born and identified on their ID card as a male now identify as transgender. So
they know identify as female.
Right? So they know identify as female. They're entering into, and I think they had the issue with Castor Seminaire, right? They're now entering the sporting arena, right? And they're competing against female athletes, right? And a lot of female athletes are now up in arms about it because they're saying, hey, a person who's born genetically as a male has certain advantages over myself as a female, right? Now, obviously, we don't live in a vacuum, right? And eventually, if you have children who are identifying as transgender in Barbados, and you have, what happens when, let's look at something as simple as our in school sports, right? What happens when you have a transgender person who says, hey, I want to run in the girls 100 meters instead of the boys 100 meters. I want to hear the opinion of your organization on that issue.
I can't speak about any organization in particular because this is never a conversation that has come up in any of the organizations that I work with. I'm not going to speak on behalf of organizations. I don't see a problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
I have no issue with it. I'm also not transgender, so I don't want to speak over transgender people and talk about what transgender people think or speculate in any kind of way. But personally, I don't have an issue.
What's I mean? Some women are fast and people don't got changed. I heard about the January or not.
I don't.
So that's a whole trading thing and whatever. Well, some people may see advantage. You got some women that you can't run fast, then.
I agree, but
regardless of them on training.
It must be known that a male athlete who is at his prime running 100 meter will always run on the 10 versus a female athlete who's at her prime.
She run over 10.
Well, she will run probably at about 11 or so.
But I think it's also noteworthy that people who have medically transitioned, so who have gone through hormone replacement therapy, who have had different gender affirmation surgeries, your hormone levels have to be at a certain level when you're going through hormone replacement therapy. So trans women have estrogen that are a certain level, their testosterone is below a certain level. Same for trans men, their testosterone is at a certain level, their estrogen is below a certain level.
But I don't think being surgically modified makes a person male or female.
That's your opinion.
Also, is usually men's 100 meters and women's 100 meters. So,
but what we basically.
I mean, I think it's a problem because there are more genders than just man and woman. So I think that in and of itself.
the question
is also
though, and the
problematic.
person that is
Last
that is
question,
what, that you said is in that
Intersex.
Yeah. On their ID card, what is the sex on their ID card?
So this is an issue because we are
Raven
so determined to be like a person is either a man or a woman. So a lot of the time when intersex children are born, babies are born, they do surgery on the baby without telling the parents, without having and that is a widespread issue. And this is why there's a lot of low visibility for intersex people in the Caribbean.
So how do you determine which gender to remove?
I guess sometimes they just decide, I guess, on which is more prominent or which they feel.
Yeah, it has to be medically done to see if the child is, if it's more like not like womb, like if it has a penis in it, but it more has a womb to bring babies, you may have to cut the gender. So it has a lot of things.
So the issue is that intersex people don't need to be fixed, so there's no problem with them. Just let them exist as they are. But the problem is that we are so fixated on just being like you're either one or the other. But it's just like no, let people exist.
Funny enough is that our application forms are well not identified on the ID. In certain forms, they ask you
male, female, or
intersexual, other, or they ask you straight up.
They also ask non-binary.
Non-binary, yeah.
What is that?
What is non-binary? Because that is one thing I've never understood.
So gender and sex are two different things, right? So just now as you're asking with intersex person, like what gender they identify as, just as they're not only male, female, when it comes to biology, it's not only male and female when it comes to gender. There's some people who don't feel like they're either gender. They don't feel like they align with society's idea of what a man is or a woman. So they're not part of the binary.
Life is supposed to be simple. And we as humans make it so damn complex.
But remember though, guys.
I feel like that's not complex though.
No, you gotta remember something too.
So if you're not male or female and you're non-binary, what do you identify as?
Not as anything non-binary. You're not a part of the binary. You're not a part of the makeup of male or female. So you're non-binary.
So alright,
I have it on my.
This is based upon how they feel or
their gender.
So,
but you go based on how they feel.
So
that's what gender is.
You're a female, right?
Last question.
The very last question to me. You're a female. You say you're non-binary, but you still go through menstruation, puberty, and all these other things that we have been taught about.
Doesn't matter.
So biology doesn't determine your gender, and I think again, intersex people are a very clear example and like they're a very clear example of that, of the fact that their biology is not definitive of your gender. If I woke up tomorrow and I magically had a penis, I would still be a woman. There are also tons of women who don't have wombs, ovaries, don't make children, don't have breasts, don't have the sex organs that we associate with womanhood, and they're still women. If somebody chopped your dick off, would you still think you're a man? Yes, because
Less
you
of a
are.
man, that's man.
Yeah, but you're still a man.
You're still a
You're not
man.
going to suddenly be a woman. So it's about what you what you identify with in society's idea of what womanhood is and what manhood is. And I identify with womanhood regardless of what is in my underwear.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
well, we come down to the end. Rohan,
Yeah.
thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Just for the viewers out there, we did not gang up on Rohan as Donnie was supposed to be here. We apologize if you think that. We just thought to ask some questions. There were pre-questions before. We put it out. Well, we don't want everybody to think that. We ask our personal questions. We ask questions that were posed. There's still a lot of conversation going on
People
the
having some serious
on the
conversation.
page
Yeah.
right now. There's still a lot of we didn't take any of these
Yeah,
questions.
so should we stop teaching biology in school?
No, nothing's wrong with knowing about biology. And we should particularly teach about biology that is not just binary.
Right,
So we
yeah.
should teach about intersex people. We should teach
I
about
can tell
all
you
of the
I
variations.
did census, and that was never a part of the curriculum.
Right, yeah,
Right.
so we
So
should teach
that was-
biology.
But what I said, guys, while we appreciate it, then I know what it is to be in a hot seat as it relates to getting homeless identified in Barbados to be human beings. And I've been asked hard questions and been put on the spot. I've always stood my ground to the level I'm at today, respectfully doing what I'm doing. But the show is all about getting down to the
Meat of the
meat
matter.
of the matter, getting to be all in people business. Well, we think that we hit people. We got people coming that we can be hitting for 6, and it's because we want that when you speak, that I could tell you straight. But you being on this show today, I was really informative, enlightened a lot more than my perception more turned to reality of what it is, and to have a conversation. And that is what the show is about. Inclusion, that we give the LGBT community a platform to speak. We give politicians a platform to speak, social people a platform to speak. And we hope that, obviously, this is not your first and last. If you feel any way, just let us know publicly. Because I always tell people, if you think that you felt a certain way being on the show, let me know.
No, I'm always pretty clear about my feelings and what I think about
Correct.
things.
And I think you did really well. I think you stood your ground. Well, there's still a lot of chatter going on here. There was still oppositions to people. People were defending the LGBT world. You were speaking. People were against whatever. And I think, like anything that you advocate for, it would be for and against. And you can't stop that. It will people that would be for you, people will be against you. Everything, this because I may be prominent helping the homeless doesn't mean everybody for me. Some people hate my guts.
I also want to add something here.
That's right.
The one thing that I'm glad with you coming on the show today is that you actually highlighted incidences of abuse against the LGBTQI
And needs to
in
stop.
Barbados. Because a lot of us in Barbados, we go along and we believe, hey, these people are always complaining, but they could walk on Broad Street or Swan Street, and nobody don't really care what you do. But when you brought those specific examples,
Personal too.
Personal examples as well, you allow people in Barbados to know that, hey, we have legitimate issues and grosses which are not being addressed, right? But I would like to give you some advice and say that instead of always seeming confrontational with the church, because I think that's where the whole discussion is getting lost, because you're going back and forth with the church on one single issue all the time. As I think it was either Damani or Kimara that said, come to the table and say, hey, these are our issues, and let the church come to the table and say, hey, these are our issues as well, and then find some way to take a middle ground, because the reality situation, the Christian gospel teaches about love and respect and humility, and if you know the 10 Commandments, and nowhere in the Bible teaches hate.
Don't forget, she's an atheist. She don't believe in the
No, I understand that, right? But what I'm saying is that the church will say that this is the position we are fighting on, right? And if you're fighting on that position, use the Christian gospel the way it should be used, not to discriminate against anybody. And this is where I will end my discussion by saying it is not man's right to judge. Let judgment be unto God. So because a man may not like the fact that another man do with a man or a woman do with a woman, that's your personal opinion. Judgment for that issue will be to God, because in the Bible there is no big sin and then a small sin. All is sin.
Right, and just to address Matthew, you keep pushing this topic of more than lately, I don't know what you're trying to insinuate. I just want to correct you, and I just said it again, that the show is all about getting into the meat of the matter, grilling, trying to get so that you, the viewers, or other people can hear her. Rohan, you did an excellent job.
So,
and
not to cut you off, but this is why people get a problem with having conversations with LGBT, because as soon as you ask a question, you're attacking, you're discriminating, you're hating. As soon as you put across your view that is in opposition to
the other person.
view.
Yeah, correct.
So, as you say, we're not here attack. You felt attacked literally, like we were jumping on
At
you.
some point she did.
Yeah, I felt backward.
Yeah,
And
from
it's
what?
because you weren't, it wasn't coming from a place of objectivity. It was like, I think it's disrespectful. I think that, but I am used to that, right? And that's always the way that it is.
But it's still my view or anybody else's view to put your position across, right? You could feel attacked, that's your personal feeling. The conversation.
Okay, but so also I personally think Christianity is stupid. I'm not going to come up here and say that, because then you would feel like I'm attacking your religion.
Yeah, right. I just felt so.
Exactly.
I won't mind.
Exactly.
Exactly. For he won't mind. For me, it won't mind.
But that would even know he uses.
but that would be her thing to say that, right? I can't jump and say, my view is to know what for me and what working for me, and we got to know where he stands. She got to know where she stands as well.
Yeah.
But the idea of somebody putting their views across cannot be seen as attacking. You know, if we had said to you, as you mean that somebody back in the civil breaker and we don't agree with no bullying and this and that, then I will understand an attack in that regard.
Yeah.
But putting an opinion across on a view which is not personal attack to you, I can't see how that's attack.
But what people have to understand is 4 moderators asking one person question.
But in the fact that you met other people were here.
Yeah, but I'm just saying is, well, it was not supposed to be Rohan alone. It was supposed to be other person, I should say, here with her. She was, and I thank you for that still coming, because it would have been 2 persons made to answer the questions. But while Rohan was here, she then bear the brunt of 4 men. I remember when Verla sat where you sat to, and she bore the brunt of 5 men. So, again.
I also want the viewers to understand, this isn't a normal talk show, or whatever you may think it is. Someone mentioned professionalism. This basically comes up from a chat room. We have a discussion in chat room, and we decided to bring it to you, the viewers, and to bring a guest sometimes to share some information.
Educate
so don't
people.
come here thinking that, okay, this is going to be professional, we can sit a certain way, say a certain thing.
This
is not scripted. We can still regard. We can express ourselves, but we feel to express ourselves.
Respectfully
so
as
let's
well.
understand that.
Yeah.
And you got to take opinion.
And you got to take opinion. So that's what I say. I love that you came. I love that you stood, and I love that you gave it. And I said I felt more educated, and I could say when I go stand, this is what I don't want to see in the LGBT community, as in nobody beating on nobody, nobody pelting at nobody, nobody refusing healthcare, and that is where I think a lot of the LGBT conversation need to be on. And that was highlighted here today with the steady flow of people watching.
One thing also,
and they don't be abused.
Also don't antagonize certain organizations and certain people.
And they're not supposed to antagonize either too.
Yeah, I agree.
Both
with
issues. Both issues should be on the same page.
I don't think the LGBT movement is antagonistic at all. But I will say, so with regards to this conversation with the church, it's not like it's an equal footing situation, you know. The LGBT community has been historically oppressed and marginalized from accessing certain things in community. We are a stigmatized community, particularly people who are and I have a certain level of privilege. I can navigate spaces and people assume that I'm straight. I'm not gender non-conforming. I don't live in a very urban area. I'm not like prone to a lot of physical violence on the basis of how I express my gender or my sexual orientation, as much as so many other people who are much more vulnerable than myself. So the LGBT community is a particularly vulnerable community. The church, on the other hand, is an organization and an institution with so much historical power. And I think what the church has a responsibility, nobody's saying that the church has to advocate or accept LGBT people or the behaviors of LGBT people or who we are. Nobody has to, because I don't accept Christianity. They don't have to accept me.
Okay.
That's fine. We can coexist. What the issue is that the church, not even just the church, because this is another issue. There's so many religious leaders who show support to our movement. Probably behind the scenes, they're not as loud and as vocal as the people who have so much negative things to say. But there's a lot of support from religious leaders and religious organizations. And the people who make the most noise in hostility towards us are actually in the minority, in my experience. But the people who are, very visceral about their objection to LGBT people, they specifically focus on just this. So this one group in particular, the Family Faith Freedom Group, and this is why we protested. Their only focus is LGBT issues. They don't talk about pedophilia. They don't talk about rape. They don't talk about anything else. This is specifically what they're focused on. And I have confronted them on several occasions and said, so what do you think about violence towards LGBT people? What do you think about people being assaulted? I've said to them, I went to a panel discussion that they had 2 years ago, and I got to the mic and I spoke to them about my experience when somebody broke into my home and wrote me a letter saying burn in Hellwicker. I spoke about death threats that we have received. I spoke about a 16-year-old trans girl who was beaten up by her neighbors so badly that she had soft tissue damage on her skull. She went in Barbados. She had to migrate to Canada. She went to the police. The police lost her report, and she refiled that case so many times until it was just nothing.
And what were their views on it? What are your views?
They said, "Where's the evidence? We don't think this happened." So they have on blinders. They have on blinders, and they are very, very, very steadfast in saying, "No, this doesn't happen. This doesn't happen." And a lot of the time, the hate and the violence that we receive is bolstered by religious argument. So people come to you and they want saying that they want to kill you and set you on fire because of this Leviticus verse, and because of this, and because of that you should be put to death. And they use religious scripture and the narrative that is perpetrated by a lot of these religious institutions. They use that in their violence. And when you confront this specific group about it, they don't want to confront it. So I said the church has a responsibility. While I'm not telling you to change your views about anything, you also have a responsibility to denounce violence. You have a responsibility to denounce discrimination. And they don't want to do that. They don't want to.
Well, I mean, total agreement
here.
That if a group comes up to set up to insinuate, because again, power.
Saying that you were speaking so fast.
Sorry.
That's very passionate. That's very passionate.
It was like a tension headache. Like, this is real. Like, this is and like people think that like, oh, this is a debate. This is like real life. Like, this is my real life. Yeah. Sometimes like I do stuff like this and I go outside and people see me. And that man who saw me in the street and talk about we deserve to be killed and blood flowing in the street, he saw me in the paper. Like, this is people's real lives. This is reality. This is not a situation where it's like kiki. It's not a situation where it's like kiki and tit for tat and it's just a game. This is our lives, and a lot of the time, people who are very against the LGBT community, they get in their cars and they go home and they're fine. Okay. While we have to deal with the real world and the brunt of the messaging that we are faced with.
And that's why I said that I can understand where you're coming from, having a community that is be abused and mistreated and ill-treated. And I said, I don't care if it's a religious body or not. We are not called to put things. And I remember I had a friend, he was very confrontational as a Christian, and he's beyond Facebook. And I said to him, like, every time you put a comment out there, it seems like the most people could do is argue with you. Okay. And that's what they call a confrontational spirit. That you just, everything you do, everything you say is an argument. And it cannot be that as a Christian that we out there insinuating anything to do with violence. And I personally have never heard the Christian community said stop the violence on things. I don't know if it's been said.
No, all they say is there is no violence.
But what about how the same LGBT community dealing with violence from within? Because there's stories out there whereas the gays or whatever, they have their own violence against each other. How are you dealing with that also?
You mean like
Where's the
intimate
partner
evidence?
violence?
Pardon?
Where's the evidence?
Evidence?
Yeah.
There's none.
Like-
There's no evidence. to be
But no,
honest.
again, but
There's no evidence.
Hold on. When I said there's no evidence,
there's
there are situations. See how you come and say that what was said to you.
But-
There are situations out there where as two men living together have a fight or
but
whatever,
that's
that's
not.
not-
But
hurt each other.
that's
How are
that.
you dealing with
the money-
How are you dealing with the
To be
violence
fair,
with any community?
but to be fair,
That's
that-
intimate partner
that's
violence,
it,
so,
yeah.
and that's across the board, and
But-
that is something
it
that
doesn't-
should be dealt with.
The money,
Across the board.
I'm going to defend Ron.
So therefore,
here,
hold on, Jermaine.
There
So
are
therefore,
heterosexual couples
So-
that fight
yes,
every day.
yes.
that's not. I don't think it's.
But
A,
keep making that comparison.
Yeah.
Every time I bring an issue with gays, but it's straight. People don't listen, but it's straight.
But it's
People
true
do that.
because you're making it seem
But
like it's
we-
a
but
specific
we
gay
can't-
issue.
but remember-
Well, I'm not saying it. I'm just saying you're speaking about violence against gays. I'm saying there's violence
Oh, he's
within the gay
asking-
community. How are you assisting the people within your community to deal with that issue?
I don't understand what you mean. How are we supposed to stop that?
that's
I
like,
don't know. I'm trying to figure out.
If you don't even know how to stop that, how can you want to stop the other violence that's going on towards you?
because
Well, that's
no,
what
and
advocacy is for.
awareness.
That's what advocacy is
Listen.
for. Advocacy is for people who are not part of your community, but we deal with issues within our community.
But as an
within the
internal.
community. So if something happens and somebody comes to our organization and says, "Hey,
Am
my
I
partner
doing
assaulted me," we
a
take them
woman?
to the family conflict unit and deal with that directly
And that-
because we have a
So
relationship.
now you're
with
answering
the
my
family.
question.
a family cover.
The family conflict unit is a unit within the Barbados Police Force that specifically deals
Oh,
with
so it doesn't
sensitive
matter,
issues.
right? It doesn't matter if it's gay
Yeah.
or not. It's anybody.
No,
So,
yeah,
so
okay.
now you're answering my question because that's the question I
There was
want to
also
answer.
an
Because there might be
incident.
gays out there that don't even know how to handle the situation.
No, yeah, so they can come to any of our organizations and we'll direct them to the appropriate resources.
Oh, by the way,
also,
where is your organization located? Because you haven't said that.
I'm,
on
we
the-
Don't
don't
say-
say that
don't say that
publicly
either.
because that's a security.
You get
That's
built
not-
up, you get murdered.
Don't say
But
that.
you can find our social media pages.
Right, don't tell people where
Yeah.
you're located. But all right, guys, Shane, again, Ron, thank you for coming. We was enlightened, well, it was heated in some instances, but I said it's very important that you handle well. You gave us all the answers, and I hope that people watching will be more sensitized. I know that this is a very sensitive.
It's a very polarizing topic.
Yeah, but I do believe though, my humble opinion, more of these supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Where people can be sensitized by persons that you that could keep you cool even though
So it's also, but it's easy to say like this should happen more often, but it is really exhausting to have to sit down and argue your own humanity, and I don't think people understand. It is draining.
yeah,
I
you have to do it
I
probably
will
every
never
day.
do something like this again. Probably like once in a year, maybe once every 2 years. But it is draining.
But even if you,
to argue your own humanity, it is very exhausting.
but here's what you have to appreciate, right? Is that, and they can use this people who have never did it for anything. So then you gotta argue being a man, in your own humanity. A woman gotta argue her space in thing. So I understand your thing. I'm married. So then my wife gotta argue. You think you're the only boy here? She gotta argue for her position in the marriage. Is that what you think you're the only woman here? You think you're the only boy here too? So you find that you might be more evident now. Almost everybody, homeless, can argue their existence in society, and you took on a mantle to advocate for your community, and that's the task that you took on, and that's the task that come with sleepless nights, stress, everything. And I know what you feel like.
Yeah.
You feel. So I'm just saying, don't feel in a way that you being repetitive, or don't feel in a way that yes, it's exhausting. I can tell you from a personal perspective, but at the end of the day, we've all been in a space. Everybody argues for a space where they feel like they are a minority.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody argues. My children argue for affection. Because my daughter want more attention than the son. So I'm just saying to you, in respect of that everybody argues for a space. Well, yours is probably more prevalent because you're in your space. You could go and ask a woman when she married to a man, and she ain't gonna ask. You understand? And if you will always have that. And as I said, keep doing what you're doing. If you believe in so much in what you're doing, then all means I'm not going to ever tell you to stop. Do you?
Be strong.
I can do me. But at the end of the day, I appreciate you coming. We all appreciate you coming. And I'm just sorry that you didn't have somebody else that could have really stayed with you. But something you're going to be on the fence with
I
yourself.
can carry my weight.
You can carry. You did it well.
Yeah.
All right. And I appreciate it. Would welcome you back anytime. to be able to. And also, if you guys have any of your events coming up, let us know, because people
Yeah,
are going to
because for the
sensitize.
events, you have mentioned that there's some
Yeah, so let's we have panel discussion.
Send it
We
to
have
us.
Send
public
that
thing.
discussion.
I don't know if we have anything planned anytime soon, but we make sure to put them on our social media and all of that. So you
So
can
send
follow,
it to
you
us.
can
Send
follow all
it
of
to send
our
it to
socials,
us.
yeah.
Remember, everybody can follow you. You understand?
I'm saying
So-
you can follow our
Right?
social
No, we don't
media.
mind. But I'm just saying.
Send it to us. as
Send it to
well.
us. You
So
got my
I can share
WhatsApp,
with
so they
people.
can put it on it. Because the more people can become to sensitize of what is happening already, and I tell you already. Again, I would say, speak to a lot of these human issues, these things that you're facing and the LGBT community facing is very important. And those are the things that I would help support as well against violence on anybody. I don't care if it's a dog. Just kind
There's
of
a saying by our Prime Minister, each one or each one.
reach one, correct. So, thank you. Appreciate it. I pray that you have a good weekend. And
What day is it?
Saturday.
Oh.
Are you living in a bubble?
I'm not here.
So stay tuned, guys, to next week. We have Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
We have Cammy Holder on Wednesday, and then we have Granville Phillips on Saturday. So we have some other. We're going to be discussing fatherless men on Wednesday or something. So
Yeah.
men being fatherless or women rather
Access for fathers.
fathers, right? And then also on Saturday, I think Granville will discuss this violence and
We'll let gas switch it now.
and what's not, huh? Bring Granville's friend.
Yeah, bring everywhere and bring time.
Okay, we'll see how that goes. All right, but we want to thank everybody for viewing. We did have a very good, steady viewership, and again, we were just getting down to the media ground. No disrespect intended to the LGBT community or those who feel attacked, or also to Ron
I didn't attack you,
and
Ron.
the group.
We cool.
We're
We
right now.
cool.
Have a good one, everybody.